Anybody out there with a purity ring? They're so damaging. If you don't know what a purity ring is, they are rings that you would get that would say you were a virgin and that you were going to stay a virgin until you were married. And they were given to you at church, sometimes after a True Love Waits campaign, or even weirder, by your dad.
All right, I just have one thing to say about promise rings. It's not bad to wear a promise ring because not everybody, guy or girl, wants to be a slut. All right, so
today we are talking about the purity movements of the 90s, the correlations between purity and shame, the Disney purity ring era, and also an overall idea of the objectification of puberty in the media.
Bitch, what I was trying to say is this situation got me so wet and so dry at the same time. Exactly.
What's up, bitches? Welcome back to another episode of So Wet, So Dry. I'm one of your hosts, Fiji, like the island, like the water. I finally made a Depop, so go check it out, guys. It's at So Wet Closet. The O is a 0, and I work in social media and marketing.
And I'm your other host, Autumn. Like the season, I took a break from The Sims, but now we are back and feeling good, and I work in entertainment. If you guys are new here to So Wet, So Dry, what we do is explore duality through deep diving various topics about sex, relationships, and personal identity, all where internet trends and reality collide. We do always post polls over on our Instagram about upcoming episodes, so make sure you're following us there to be a part of that. Our Instagram is at So Wet, So Dry. The O's are 0s. And whatever platform you are currently listening to this episode on, make sure you follow and or subscribe. Like the episode, give us a comment. You can always DM us on Instagram to keep the conversation going, or email us, which is in the description. You can also rate us on platforms like Spotify, Amazon, or Apple, and it would mean so much to us. Let us know if you end up doing that.
Yes, and we always close out the episode talking about what we're so wet, so dry, and still confused about the topic, because it is still okay to be a little bit confused. So make sure you guys listen all the way through to hear our thoughts.
We are going to start with a little bit of history on the evangelical purity movements, really throughout the 80s, 90s, and 2000s, but specifically 1990s right now. So purity culture is a concept that refers specifically to a movement begun in the early 90s by white evangelical organizations and leaders who developed entire youth ministries around the goal of encouraging adolescents to pledge themselves to sexual abstinence until entering what they called a biblical marriage relationship.
Ew.
I know.
Ew.
So other than religious reasons, a few reasons why these purity movements were so popular and in the mainstream media is 30 years ago, we were in the AIDS crisis, and also teen pregnancies were everywhere and in the media as well. So there was an overall fear of Americans about, kids having sex, basically.
Yeah. And guys, listen to our sex education episode for more on that too, because the numbers are a little bit.
We've been covering abstinence-only education, comprehensive sex education, and the differences, and we are going to talk about that a little bit today as well.
Yeah.
So news outlets like Newsweek and ABC's 2020 were quick to pick up on this virginity trend. True Love Waits, which is an organization that we're going to get into in a minute, received hundreds of media inquiries in its first year. The organization later held similar displays of cards at the Georgia Dome in Atlanta in 1996 and at the Golden Gate Bridge in 99.
Wait, cards like virginity cards?
Like pledges. Yeah, like they stuck papers in the ground that was like a pledge, essentially.
And they had a bunch of prepubescent kids doing this.
Children, yes.
That's
yes,
so
ma'am.
culty. Okay.
Yeah, and I'm going to show pictures, don't worry.
Ew.
But federal funding was allocated shortly thereafter for abstinence-based programs like Sex Respect and Choosing the Best, whose explicit purpose was to teach abstinence from sexual activity outside marriage as the expected standard for all school-age children. States funded over 700 programs in the first 2 years that the money became available through the Welfare Reform Act. During George W. Bush's administration, abstinence organizations could apply directly for grants, bypassing the states via the community-based abstinence education program. At the same time, studies started to emerge that showed the abstinence-only programs had no significant effect on the sexual behavior of youth who were exposed to it. Additionally, a congressional report showed that 80% of the grantee programs contained false, misleading, or distorted information about reproductive health. Many of the abstinence-only curricula were called out for having sexist or racist stereotypes and anti-LGBTQ plus language. So no surprise there. But basically, the government was down for all of this going on, and they were giving like millions and millions of dollars. And it wasn't until Obama that kind of fell short. And that was like later, like when he was elected. So, because like Clinton was down for it, George W. Bush was down for it. Like they were giving millions of dollars to these organizations promoting this abstinence only sex education that we're going to get into. And it's like, it was just too easy for them to do it.
Yeah. And it's crazy because how it says like it's misleading, distorted, blah, blah, blah. Like in our sex education episode, we talk about how only a certain number of states require it to be medically accurate, which is fucking insane. But this also makes me, I mean, I know it says in this article that it's through the Department of Health and Human Services that they got these grants, but I'm like, Trump wants to defund the Department of Education, and I'm like, weren't they part of grants for this stuff as well, which seems a little bit backwards to me.
Right.
But yeah, at the very beginning when it's talking about the virginity stuff, like, I don't know if it's just because we're older now too, where it's like, when is the last time I thought about virginity? Like, I don't think about it, you know, I'm well past the virgin status, but I do remember that being like huge because, you know, I went to Catholic school, like Mary's a virgin. You say it every fucking 5 seconds, Mary the Virgin, Mary the Virgin, Mary the Virgin. But also in like middle school and stuff, like public school, when I went there too, it was very much like virginity was just a thing during that time period.
Yeah. And it's like virginity and also like being pure equals virginity. And we're going to talk about the definition of that because, and it's all like, it all just is like so much shame on like young people, you know? And it's like, especially like with religious reasons, it gets tricky. Like I don't want to critique like other people's religions. Like even though it is fucked up, like I do know that like Christian people like grow up and they genuinely just think like this is what they're supposed to do and this is what God wants them to do. So it's like they're gonna do it. But the impact on the youth is like devastating on these types of organizations. And just like you're saying, like the overall like virginity is in the air when you're a kid and everyone knows about it.
Yeah. And there's nothing wrong with being abstinent. There's nothing wrong with being celibate. You know, like there's asexual people. Like it is fine to not want to be running to have sex or have sex in general, all of that stuff. It's just the shame and the like focus on it. I mean, I don't know. I definitely, even by the time I was out of Catholic school and by the time I lost my virginity, I'd been out of Catholic school for at least 2 or 3 years. The amount of shame that I feel like has stuck with me surrounding sex and purity and all of that stuff is so toxic. So it's like that messaging that needs to be eliminated.
Right. Lastly, from this Jezebel article, the purity movement was about conservative evangelicals keeping access to political power, says Sarah Moslener, author of Virgin Nation and professor of religion at Central Michigan University. And it was young people, sexually pure young people, who could best make that case. So it's like they were using young people to like control us through politics, like what we talk about with bodily autonomy and like keeping women virgins and like they can only fuck their husbands when their husbands say it's okay. Like it's all like a big, scary, overarching game that's going on. And like kids and preteens are like in the media with their faces at these events, pledging with their purity rings. And it's just, it leaves a very sour taste in your mouth seeing.
Yeah, because it's making it the predominant culture, and then it's putting shame around anyone that speaks up against that. So it's silencing it because it's not just like you know, the evangelical Christian adult communities that are going to like come after you as a child if you're like, I don't want to do this purity stuff. It's all of the, you know, your peers and stuff too at very pivotal ages where it's like, oh, well, then you're a slut. Oh, well, then you're a hoe, like da-da-da, all of that stuff. So it's like kind of like mob mentality and how you're just like fucked on any side if you do speak up. And then if you speak up as an adult, it's like, oh, you want your kid to get STDs? You want your kid to be pregnant? So it's... Yeah.
Exactly. And imagine if you're a young kid and all your best friends around you that you go to school with are doing this thing. Like, you're going to do it too.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about purity rings. So we're going to play a compilation of people that have purity rings now and, you know, love their purity ring.
I just got the call. My purity ring is ready. So I'm wearing all black because it is a funeral to my flesh and the celebration of my new life in Christ.
Hey friends, come with me to buy a purity ring for myself. Last night at church, I decided to rededicate my purity back to God.
Okay, so the number one thing that I thought about purity rings, I guess that's proven wrong, is that I thought it was like before you ever have sex. Like, it's only for when you're younger. It's not for like when you're like later found by Christ or rebaptized or come back to Christ or whatever they call it.
Dude.
That's a thing too. And the first woman that's from Too Hot to Handle, I had watched like a YouTube video essay about this, and I think this could be an interesting topic for us to cover later though. Like, how many women were influencers or OnlyFans creators, sex workers, that ended up in the like Christ, like alt-right pipeline? You know, and I wonder if it's because they receive a lot of hate online for being like sluts and hoes and like whatever, and then they're just tired and they find Christ. Even like Whoa Vicky, who was not really like, you know who she is?
No.
She's the white woman that talks very much, she has like a black scent, but she claims that she's from like I don't know, she's from Atlanta, but she found Christ and is very like ultra Christian, like all of this stuff. There's a lot of, she's not as much like sex worker, but there's a lot of women like that.
Yeah.
Which is weird. But yeah, I didn't know that it was, I always thought it was like a younger people thing because I knew people that had them when we were in middle school, high school, but
and I think that's what you do hear about the most and like see the most. But yeah, it's like you can be born again, like that whole type of thing.
And I didn't have a purity ring, but I did have a promise ring.
Okay.
With my first boyfriend. And like, this was back when promise rings were like trending. Like, it was like early Instagram when Instagram first started. Like, there were like Tumblr, YouTube couples or whatever. And we had been together for a while, and he had gotten me, like, it was a pretty fancy ring for us being in like 8th grade. It was either in 8th grade or freshman year. It was like from Kiss Jewelers.
Every
or
kiss
K.
begins with
K. And it had both of our birthstones in that heart.
Damn.
Yeah. And it said our names on the inside of the ring. Yeah, I don't know how the fuck he got this. But I forget if it was a promise that we're going to be together for a while or a promise that we're going to like wait to have sex with each other. We were never going to wait though, because we had been doing everything sexual since like the beginning. And he wanted to he would write me letters begging me to give him a blowjob, begging me to like have sex with him. So he was not like, oh, we're going to wait until marriage. But it was definitely like, I think it was more like, we're going to wait for each other.
Yeah.
Like, you're going to fuck me first.
Right.
Like,
I feel, it's like you could promise like different things, but like, and I've also heard of people like promising like, we're not going to get married yet, but like, I promise it's you, like type shit.
I'm like, isn't that crazy though? I'm like,
but I remember it being trendy too, honestly. Now I didn't, but now that you just said that, like that was a thing that bitches wanted, but like not even in a Christian way, like
just because he wasn't Christian at all. But I'm like, that's low key crazy that like my first boyfriend in middle school, high school got me more gifts than like all the boyfriends I had in adulthood. Anyway,
little 8th grade ass boy,
like
the fuck?
So romantic.
So now we're gonna watch a really creepy TikTok that I found about promise rings, young girls, and their fathers.
Oh my! I think I've heard about that. Okay.
What is this?
Sarah, will you wear this ring as a sign and a promise to God and to me, to remain pure until the day you're married?
Yes. That is gorgeous.
Give me your left hand. Okay. This ring will remain on your...
Okay, yeah, this is fucking gross. I had seen another one, like this guy on the news talking about some shit, and it's just fucking creepy. Like, why are you proposing to your fucking daughter? Like, why are you like micromanaging her virginity, her sex life? Like I feel two ways about some of this stuff, because part of me has been like, okay, I think it's very impactful the way a father treats his daughter and showing her, if she ends up heterosexual, what type, or like any partner in general, like what type of partner she ends up being with. So I think like the respectfulness from your father and like that is nice. And I feel like that is what they think that they're doing in this. They're like, I'm showing you, I'm going to be the first man in your life. Like God and me, and then eventually...
And that's it? Yeah, and then eventually your husband.
It's just showing women more as like property, which is like a whole other thing. And yeah,
that's what I'm saying.
It's creepy. It's weird.
It's really fucking weird. And I think she visibly looked uncomfortable on that TikTok. Mm-hmm. Like, I really do. But you're right. Did. Like, this is like, there's so many situations like this across America, like right now. And like, I want to say it's like old, ancient, traditional practices still being done today, but it's like, it's not even old, ancient. It's like, I'm just not in those spaces, but like this shit goes on like all the time.
Yeah. And it's in a lot of cultures, right? Where like, there's like a dowry, or you have to ask the father's permission, and like blah, blah, blah. And even in Love is Blind, like they did that a couple times. And it's some people, it's like a respect thing. It's like you're giving your daughter away, like being the biggest man in his life to this new man. And it's like, okay, like whatever. Like part of it, I'm like, okay, like I don't mind some of it, but I think when it's like more about the like virginity and you're literally on your knee proposing.
Yeah.
And then like some of them will have like the video I saw, like the girl was like sitting in his lap, and like they had like a father-daughter dance that was like very crossing the lines of weird, like.
Yeah. And I just feel like if like your partner is going to ask your dad if they can marry you, like just ask both the parents. Like don't make it about a man thing, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's how I feel about it. But I Googled the definitions of purity and purity ring just from Google. So purity is freedom from adulteration or contamination. Okay.
Adulteration.
Like adultery?
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking, because in the Bible, like adultery is a commandment, but that's cheating.
Right. So like freedom from like any type of like sex or cheating, I guess.
Damn.
And then freedom from immorality, especially of a sexual nature. So,
and this is again just saying sex is immoral.
Exactly. And contaminating your body, bro. Like it's absolutely wild. And a purity ring is worn to symbolize a commitment to remain abstinent from sex until marriage. They're also known as chastity rings, abstinence rings, or promise rings, which as we know can be different. But just nice to get the definitions out there. Like honestly, like I didn't go to any sort of religious school. Like I don't know shit about any of this. So it's like, I'm glad Fiji's here and like I'm educating myself as well.
I will say the chastity thing, like I don't remember everything, but we did talk about chastity in religious school. Yeah. Like I don't really remember the conversations, but chastity belts are also a thing in Mormon culture too. Like they have like the underwear and stuff, like so uncomfortable. But okay.
I know.
Like you have to wear a whole belt. Okay.
Yeah. And now we are going to talk about those organizations I was mentioning that fully promote these purity movements, abstinence, all that. So we're going to talk about the Real Silver Ring thing and True Love Waits, which are both organizations, and also just purity balls in general, like dances, like balls. No, like Cinderella goes to the ball, but like we're purity. That's why I said like ball. I thought we're like
blessing testicles.
Yeah, no, bitch. Like, God help us. So The True Love Waits campaign was born in 1993 and had an all-encompassing mission for its participants to abstain from sexual thoughts, sexual touching, pornography, and actions that are known to lead to sexual arousal. If the campaign's numbers are accurate, between 93 and 2004, an estimated 2.5 million youths joined, signing the pledge and wearing purity rings. And fun fact, before we get into the Disney purity era section, like Disney stars had True Love Waits like on their fucking rings. Like this shit was everywhere.
Ew.
True Love Waits.
Yeah, I'm even thinking with the promise ring how like mine wasn't, but like how that culture was probably so predominant that it was like low-key influencing my shit. Because it was mad people at my school that had them.
I'm telling you.
Bruh.
It's really scary. So this youth-based campaign utilizes positive peer pressure by encouraging those who make a commitment to refrain from premarital sex to challenge their peers to do the same and walk in kingdom principles.
Oh my God.
So we
kingdom, the word kingdom just triggered me back to religious days.
I'm sure. We are going to read the True Love Waits pledge or one of the pledges.
Should we read it together at the same time?
No, please no. That's going to be absolutely horrible. All right. You want to read it?
No,
or
go
should
ahead.
I read?
Go ahead.
Okay. Believing that true love waits, I make a commitment to God, myself, my family, my friends, my future mate, and my future children to a lifetime of purity, including sexual abstinence from this day until the day I enter a biblical marriage relationship. I am a royal descendant and I will live, I will live as a representative and heir of the royal family in the kingdom of God, influencing others to do the same. And y'all telling me that's not a cult, bro. Come on, bro.
That's what I'm saying. The kingdom of God, like the number of times I've heard that fucking phrase. I don't know about the royal I had never heard really that shit before, but
yeah, that shit is taking it a little. Like, are we in Narnia?
Right.
Like, I'm just like what is going
the
on?
part where it's like, you know, like you're not doing any of this sexual shit until you enter a biblical marriage. I'm like, this is also a means to get people to settle down faster so that we can have more nuclear families, more pushing of the, you know what I'm saying? Because they want to fuck. Because you want to fuck. Because you want to fuck.
So they're gonna, I guess we gotta get married at 19 years old.
I wonder why the divorce rate is high. Like, guys.
It's absolutely insane. But True Love Waits would put on a bunch of events at malls. They would have concerts. Like, it was very like, it's cool, you know, to not fuck and like be here. Like, they really campaigned to like preteens. So I'm going to put a picture on the screen of this one particular event that they had. Whereas, as you can see, there's a bunch of little pledges stuck into the ground. Those are all the people that are pledging to be abstinent until their biblical marriage relationship. So
that kid looks like fucking 9 years old. They don't even know. The kid doesn't even know. You know what? And this is why I'm like, when we say, oh, we have to wait till an age appropriate time to talk about sex, what do you mean? You're talking about it.
Right. Because it's not just girls. Like, it's all the kids. Right. Exactly. So this took place on July 29th, 94. There were thousands of teens gathered in D.C. to tell the nation publicly about their pledge to remain sexually abstinent until marriage. They covered the lawn of the National Mall with an estimated 200,000 signed purity pledge cards, and they attended a rally with speakers and Christian rock bands.
I'm just like,
it's not funny, but like,
is this? Like,
I know, the public, like I got a purity ring and everyone should know, or this is my pledge and it's right here in the ground. Like, I thought this shit was supposed to be intimate. You know what I mean?
Right.
So teenagers across the U.S. had signed the cards produced and collected by the Southern Baptist organization True Love Waits over the previous year. It was a breakout moment in the evangelical purity movement, a movement that impacts sex education in the United States to this literal day. And as to if this organization still exists, I'm pretty sure it does. I know that it did as of 2022, which this next article was from. It says the True Love Waits campaign continues, and another generation of teens are being deprived of the sex education that can prevent disease, youth pregnancies, and years-long, if not lifelong, cycles of guilt and shame. I hoped by now there'd be an end to the madness and more room for people to just be human, but unfortunately, that kind of thinking is alive and well. And the person that wrote that article was someone that like was Christian and like did maybe go to one of these events and is now just like reflecting on all of the horror it caused on their upbringing.
Just speaking on the whole, it's like alive and well thing in our culture too. Like I was thinking a lot about this like post-election and how much stuff, I saw a TikTok about it too. Like, you know, like the Midwest style, the hunting gear as fashion,
Okay. Yeah.
like trad wives, Mormon cultures having a huge old money. Like there is a whole bunch of like older, like white people Christian shit or Mormon shit that is having a fucking moment in like predominant culture and being labeled as cool. And it's not just like, it'll be like girls, like liberal girls from like Bushwick or like people in Atlanta that are like liberal as fuck that are just like adopting these styles and stuff, but it's becoming so normalized that I think like we forget where it's coming from. Cause I've seen a lot of Mormon shit with the trad wife stuff that is very similar to this. You know, it's becoming cool again. Like,
I know, but it's like no one's educated like the same way that like your boyfriend in 8th grade, like he just gave you the ring. Like they just wanted to be in the
cool
trad
right
wife.
now. Yeah.
Exactly. But no one really knows like where the roots are, you know? So it's a great point. And we also went to Reddit. There was a Reddit thread. Who else was part of the Purity True Love Waits movement in the late 90s? This person said, my church in California wasn't doing purity balls or ceremonies where we pledged our virginity to our dads, thank goodness. There was a big push to kiss dating goodbye, though. I'm curious how others who went through this ended up and what your experiences were. So someone said the amount of girls fucked up by being called bruised fruit outweighs any possible good that could have come from purity culture. What is it with the bruised fruit?
Bro, I remember that shit specifically as well. Yeah, I relate heavily to the shame. I think it's what made me a bigger slut. Like, I'm going to be so real. Because I was trying to fuck the shame away, too. I was like, well, if I'm already bruised fruit, if I'm already, like, a fucking not a virgin anymore, then I might as well just, like, be a total heathen.
Like, bruised fruit? Like, is that because Mary and they were eating? Or no, Adam and
like,
Eve?
Well, yeah, you're like wasted. Like you're not pure anymore. You're not valuable. Like you've lost all of your like value essentially.
But where is the fruit coming from?
I guess your pussy is like a metaphor for like fruit.
Okay,
and like
so it's just
and
that.
if someone's already entered you, then you're like damaged. Like you know, like pop your cherry. Like if your cherry's already popped, then like
more fruit. I'm like, it's horrible. Yeah, it's literally awful. Someone else said, me, and I'm still unlearning so much shit from it as a fully grown adult. And then someone said, I personally think that the whole thing was damaging in the end. Lots of kids involved turned out fine. I know several of them. So many more were damaged. Purity went deeper than abstinence. It involved your thoughts and desires, not to mention how you presented yourself. Masturbation was seen as bad because you're lusting after someone during that. I wore giant baggy shirts because I didn't want my giant boobs to cause any of my friends to stumble. I feel lucky that my mom was very sex positive regardless. I was taught proper sex ed, which I ended up having to pass along to so many of my friends. I have daughters. I struggle so much with how I want to teach them about modesty and dating and God. My 21-year marriage feels like a battle in those areas as well. Our feelings growing more different. I am just now beginning to separate my faith from my culture, and it is painful. Those of us who were hurt by it, I wish I could hug all of you.
Bro, like one part about this, like how she said she didn't want her giant boobs to show because she didn't want her friends to stumble. Like, I remember when I went to public school after Catholic school, because you wear a fucking stiff, thick plaid uniform as a skirt, knee socks, the little Mary Janes, and then we wore like button-down white blouses with like a vest over them. And so it's like you have this feeling of being like covered and stiff all the time. Like your body needs to be covered, you need to be stiff, like all of that. And so when I went to public school and I could dress what I wanted to wear, I think it made me like be over sexual. Like I wanted to show off like low cut shirts, boobs, like tighter things, because I had been in like a fucking damn near paper bag for so long. And I did, like, my parents were very like much against that. Like I wasn't allowed to wear leggings. I would like wear sweatpants over my leggings and then like change on the bus because they showed your butt too much. But like exactly like the amount, it had the opposite effect on me where I like purposely wanted to become more sexual against all of that. But it's very much like you should feel shame about your body, even as a 12-year-old girl who is just developing, like training bra era, and you're just automatically like, your body is a danger, it hurts other people, it makes other people tempted, and you're bad. I mean, when you think about Adam and Eve tempted Adam with knowledge. Like, you know what I'm saying? It is all ingrained to make you feel so much shame. That's just takes a lifetime to unlearn.
And you already, whether you're religious or not, like young girls and boys feel shame about their bodies. So it's like then adding that on top of it. Like, I can't even fucking imagine, bro. And it's like, you're a kid. Like, you're not thinking critically. It's like, you just think like, this is it. Like, this is the way. It's all surrounding you. Like, whether you're in a small town or not. And then you grow up and like, freak out because it's really scary and like it was all traumatic.
Yeah, but even as a kid, like I feel like you do pick up and you do know, because I remember being like, because like growing up where I lived and stuff, there was like this pedophile like next door to me, and then there were certain other experiences that I had when I was younger with like friends and stuff where I just knew adult men were like dangerous, like they were not to be trusted and they were creepy with young girls. And so like I always felt like, but I'm just like, this is weird. Like, why are you making me cover myself up when like my babysitter's stepdad is like she's hiding at our house because like he's a fucking predator. But like I need to protect myself and like I can't play outside anymore because of him. Like I'm just a girl. Like I'm literally just like a 13-year-old girl, 12-year-old, 11. I was like 9 when we lived there. You know what I'm saying? So it's just like, what, you're sexualizing my body. Before I even know what that is, I'm learning about what that is in terms of predatory.
That.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah. That's such a good point. It's like, yeah, you don't know what it is, but even as kids, like you can sense when like something's off or like it doesn't seem fair. It's like, well, why am I? But when you grow up and like realize it's so much more than that about like the purity and the Christian, and it's all ingrained throughout everything you were doing.
Yep.
But like you mentioning like the particulars about the uniform and like really feeling like stiff in your actual clothing that you were being forced to wear, like, I'm really sorry, babe.
Yeah.
Like that's really crazy.
I mean, now I have a Catholic skirt and wear it as like fashion.
Yeah, it's like a joke. I know. Like, and it's so crazy that like the knee-high stockings are like Catholic schoolgirl porn, but like actual Catholic schoolgirls like I know that's where it comes from.
It's the fetishization of that too, because it's like, and even how like crosses, I mean, I'm wearing a cross right now. I wear it like ironically, but like all of that fashion has come back very much. And even Madonna in the 80s, like she was doing a lot of like music videos super sexualized in church. Like when she was on the cover of Vogue, it was a big, bad thing because they were like, how dare she, She always played into the Madonna, like the Virgin Mary, like the whole, like that trope.
Yeah.
So it's just, I love when, I mean, even plaid in general has always been very punk, I think, because of that stuff, because it's like you're kind of taking it back and you're like making it your own now, which is why I love to wear crosses now, because I'm like, bitch, I did my time.
Bitch, yeah. I prayed. I was there every single morning. Like, yeah. That's so crazy. So another organization or program similar to True Love Waits is called the Silver Ring Thing. So this is an article I found from the year 2006. Okay, so we're moving a little bit more in that direction now. But the Silver Ring thing is a nationwide ministry program that uses abstinence-only marriage sex education as a means to bring unchurched students to Jesus Christ. So assuming that means people that don't go to church, like they're converting people, essentially. And the article talks about, again, like over 1 million taxpayer dollars are going to this program, literally.
Guys.
And during the Silver Ring Thing's flagship 3-hour program, members testify about how accepting Jesus Christ improved their lives, quote, Bible messages, and urge audience members to ask the Lord Jesus Christ to come into their lives. So it's not only about not having sex and waiting till marriage. It's like overall, like Christ within you, you know?
And another thing that's like, now that I'm thinking about it in predominant culture too, on YouTube, there is a lot of women vloggers, like lifestyle vloggers, and even video essays that I've watched. And I've started to watch them, or I've watched them, and then I take everything they say with a grain of salt, because they'll start the video essay with like a Bible passage, or they'll like do it throughout the vlog. And then I'm like, oh, this is like where we are.
Yes. Even on TikTok, I've seen something like that. And it's like, I don't want to be like, oh no, because you said a prayer, like now I'm thrown off. Because it's like, I do think like spirituality, religion, and it's like, I'm so different than you. Like, I can't sit here and say like, fuck that, because I was never a part of it. I don't really know anything about it. Like,
I feel like for you, it's probably like a little different because you don't, but me, I have no fucking problem, because like, and I've had conversations with friends, and I'm like, okay, like I shouldn't say certain things, but it's also like, no, I definitely feel like a fucking victim of the Catholic Church, Protestant Church. Like, I definitely fucking feel that. So, like,
exactly.
And I know it. I know these Bible study practices. So
exactly,
I'm gonna,
like, you know, like, you kingdom of, like, I wouldn't have teached
I know the prayers. Like, I can recite them still because we would do them in the morning, at lunch, and, like, we would have religious class. Like, I know it like the back of my fucking hand. So it's like, and religions are different. There's lots of different like types of Christianity. So I have no problem with people being religious and practicing that. It's just like when the cultiness of things starts coming
up. It's like the organized piece. Like,
yeah. Because I say all the time, like, religion still my background heavily impacts how I approach most things in terms of, like, loving everyone, accepting everyone, like, giving a space for sinners, like, all that shit, like, outside of the language of it.
Yeah, you give a little, no more space for sinners.
Right, but, like, these people, they use the Bible passages to oppress, and that is where it's fucking scary.
That's where you draw the line. And the only thing I literally remember is, like, I knew that my mom had left Catholic school for like a specific reason, or like she didn't get kicked out, but like it was like very traumatic. And then she came out as gay. And I literally always thought Catholic Christian equals homophobia. So like from that day forth, when I figured that out as like a young girl, I was like, fuck those bitches. Like they don't like my mom. But I also remember like my girlfriends dressing up for their first communion, and like I felt FOMO. Yes. I was like, damn, like you guys look so cute, whatever. Like I'm not a part of that little church thing, but little did I know.
And that's also part of my fucking resentment towards it, because I went to Catholic school where there were maybe 12 kids in my class, and all of them got first communion except for me. I had to sit in a separate queue. I had to literally sit. They all sat here and did their little fucking shit. Like, it was a whole, like, semester of learning about it. And I had to sit over here. Even though I was still Christian, I still went to a different church every Sunday. They were just like, you're not one of us, so you go over. So I had FOMO, too, because I was like, I want the outfit, I want the ceremony, I want the whatever. But also, that is fuck you guys, because...
Yeah, yeah. And that's one pillar in the trauma and the victimization of the church. Like, seriously. As a kid, that's horrible.
Number one, first bully I
Even
ever
now it would be, but like, yeah.
Right.
But, okay, so this is from NBC News. And so the federal government agreed to stop funding a nationwide program that promotes teen abstinence to settle a lawsuit alleging the money was used for Christian proselytizing. Under the deal, the Silver Ring Thing program won't be eligible for more funding unless it ensures the money won't be used for religious purposes. Public funds were being used to fund a roadshow, really, to convert teens to Christianity, said Julie Sternberg, an ACLU attorney. So, like, basically they got sued or some shit because people were thinking, like, this is like a scam. Like, you guys are just trying to convert people. And, like, then the government, like, stopped funding this specific thing. So, like, I guess that's good. And, like, I guess, like, Obama probably had something to do with that. Because I did read that, like, he was the first one out of how many presidents to, like, introduce comprehensive sex ed into, like, the schools. Yeah. Okay, so this is an article from Vice. We love Vice. I love Vice. And this is from a perspective of a mother that went to a silver ring thing like,
silver ring
program, event, like, event, whatever they were doing. Because she was Christian and she was like, had kids and was like, I'm going to go as a parent and see what this whole thing is about. And so she wrote an amazing article on her experience and her thoughts. We're going to read some of it. So she said, the Silver Ring Thing, an organization dedicated to duping kids into buying purity rings, is like the Cirque du Soleil of Christian teen abstinence programs. Since 96, their mission has been to have as many kids as possible publicly pledge. Again, everywhere it's like publicly pledge, like not to your family, like whatever, to abstain from premarital sex at one of their big virginity promise events. According to SRT, more than 460,000 teens have come to past shows. 175,000 have put on the ring and 85,000 have given their lives to Christ. So this is something that a middle-aged man said in one of these rooms that this woman's recalling.
Oh, God.
I want you to strongly consider putting a ring on yourself so you can pray for your child's abstinence every day. How cool is that? Creepy might be a better word, which is what she's saying. I've been wearing this ring for almost 15 years now. I pray for my daughter's purity every day, all three of them. That's what this man is like preaching to the choir literally right now in this room full of awkward parents. She said, I nodded, just a lone man on his own, looking concerned about teen virginity, contemplating the visual imagery of a man praying for his daughter's purity. No unrealistic high expectations here, just a bunch of adults who probably have regular sex, relaying to children that vigorous praying in a ring will replace basic human biological needs. So I just loved that.
Yes.
You know, I love some good voice, easy to understand. But yeah, so True Love Waits, the Silver Ring thing, both huge movements and organizations going on during this time. Like, there's no wonder that, like, all this was happening in schools. It's like the government was paying for everything. Like, 90s, 2000s, like, this shit was fucking huge and it was everywhere and it was impacting not only mere pedestrians like us, but like TV stars, the media, everyone. Like, this is contextualizing the Disney purity ring era for us. Like, this was going on. So before we move on, we are going to talk about purity balls. So what the fuck is that? I don't know. It's like you and your dad go, like a woman or a girl and your dad go, you dress up like it's giving daddy-daughter dance, but with a twist, everyone's talking about your virginity with your dad. Right. And then you take like really weird pictures of like the dad looking down at their daughter, like pleading for their, like, it's so crazy, dude. It's really fucking crazy. So this is from the HuffPost or the Huffington Post, which we also like. Known as purity balls, these fancy religious events are a celebration of the daughter's virginity. Daughters often wear ball gowns, spend the evening eating and dancing with their fathers before vowing to remain morally pure until married. Fascinated by the purity ball phenomenon, artist David Magnuson set out to capture the sentiment behind a gesture many of us would find unusual. So basically, HuffPost talked to this guy that is a photographer, went to take photographs of said purity ball. Purity ball. Okay. When I first found out about purity balls, I thought it was all about protecting family's honor. But as I learned more, I understand that the fathers, like all parents, simply wanted to protect the ones they love in the best way they know how.
From great orgasms.
Bro.
Sorry, keep going.
Literally. It was also often the girls themselves that had taken the initiative to attend the balls. They had made it their decisions out of their own conviction and faith, in many cases with fathers who didn't know what a purity ball was before being invited by their daughters. I was struck by the idea that what set us apart wasn't anything more than how we had been influenced by the culture we grew up in and the values it has instilled in us. So, like, this is a good point. Like,
Okay, no.
I'm just saying, like, this is, like, these young girls, like, I just mean, like, even if they're, like, can we go to the ball, Dad? Like, that's not their fault, you know?
Exactly. But that's the people that are pushing its fault because, duh. Like,
Right.
just like how I wanted a promise ring from my fucking boyfriend when I was a teenager because it's like, it's cool. Every girl, not every girl, but a lot of girls, boys probably too, would want to go to a dance where they get dressed up, there's pictures taken, all their friends are there, you know, and they're probably wanting to go to be like I look pretty, like I look cute, I get this extra celebration. Like, who doesn't want to do that?
Right. Like daddy-daughter dances. Like,
Right.
a lot of girls want to go to things like that. And, like, this is, like, what they say it is, but it's, like, got some, like, hidden, fucked up shit. That's
Sinister.
not hidden. It's blatant,
Yeah.
honestly. So let's look at some photos. If you want to just click that link and just take a deep scroll. I mean, I'm not really sure which ones I'm going to put, but, like, these are some. I'm sorry. This is what it is. I didn't make it.
Oh,
This is what's going
my
on.
God.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh my God. It's literally giving like it's giving horror movie. Like she's about to be like sacrificed to the fucking, oh my goodness.
Like,
okay,
these are
like the one
people's
on the
real-
cliff, they're not as bad. Like that looks more just like a father like picture because they're like, yeah. But also, why
But
is
everyone
the
looks
fucking
sad.
6-year-old going? Oh my, ew, the hand placement needs to be fucking interrogated.
No, it's like really fucking
It
bad.
looks like pregnancy pictures in some. I'm like throwing up in my mouth. Okay, yeah, this is awful. This is awful. The first one is very much giving wedding photo. Like, what are we doing? Okay.
I know. Okay.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
bad.
I know. So last thing about purity balls and more of this just like father-daughter situation. I know it's uncomfortable, but like this is what was going on. So at purity balls around the world, daughters make their pledges and don their true love waits rings, and fathers take possession of keys that open gifted lockets, keys to be guarded, handed over to future husbands only after wedding vows. Then father and daughters dance together, modeling a proper date.
Okay. This just real quick, because have you seen on the manosphere thing the key and lock metaphor?
No.
This is a big fucking thing. It's like, I'm probably saying it wrong, guys, because every time I see this shit, it just pisses me off and I like, bye. But it's like the idea that like a woman is a lock and there should only be one key, and if it's been used by multiple, if the lock has multiple keys,
yes!
then you're a whore.
They've been saying this like metaphor analogy type shit. Yes,
it's
I
like
have
very
heard that.
big in the Andrew Tate sphere,
Right.
the, like that dude type of thing. Yeah, that, because it's again the whole damaged fruit thing. Like there's so many metaphors for women being like, oh, if she's touched at all, if she's poisoned, if she's then.
And it's dehumanizing. Fruit locks?
Lock?
Are
Like,
we
just
objects?
lock me in a cage and you have my key. I used to wear a key necklace too. I had a whole face, but I had the
That's
key.
kind of
at
cunt,
least.
though.
Yeah,
right,
so.
exactly. Even if we can look past the creepiness of adult men taking their adolescent daughters on pretend dates, we're left with some deeply troubling imagery. A woman's body in this framing isn't really hers to control.
Exactly.
A father is meant to defend his daughter's precious virginity until another man has proven himself worthy of having her. Then the key is handed over like her husband has just bought a car.
Oh my God.
The concept of treating women like property whose value is in their innocence, the way that the car loses its value once it's been driven off the lot, is not unique. Is not unique to the purity movement. nor is the idea of treating the husband-wife relationship as an extension of the father-daughter bond. So, yeah, like what we're about to get into, like all of this is like misogyny, racism, white supremacy, like all that shit is ingrained within this. This is like really nothing new.
Women
but it is
property. They're property. To be passed on. To be controlled
and not just
and
like
passed on.
Your daughters are too, like your own family, like you're, you know, it's like and you fuck other bitches, but
yeah, and not to be loved and understood as your daughter who's going to grow to be a woman and a girl and like all of that stuff, but to be micromanaged, protected, defended, and then like the other fucked up part about it is like they're acting like, oh, they're protecting their daughter, they're saving her, they're protecting her from these other outside forces, but they're really like dominating and like subjugating her. Like they're putting all this shit on her too. So you're fucking up your relationship with your own daughter.
Yeah, I know.
And then also I would argue you're not giving a good example of the type of person she should end up with. You're giving a terrible relationship, a terrible example because you're teaching her that her partner should control her.
Right. And also just the way the article said, like, treating women like property and their value is in their innocence, like whether or not they've come out of that like innocence and naivety, like childlike ways, like it's pedophilia, like it's wild.
And they probably would have stayed innocent and naive longer had you not put all this bullshit on them.
Yeah, and the statement that like women's value lies in their innocence, like we can connect that to our Disney Channel stars that we're going to get into. It's like wanting to keep kids as young as possible for as long as they can, but like no puberty showing at all. Then you have to be like an adult woman that's like perfect. Like the innocence is real and like people really do see that quote unquote value within women.
Yeah, and I know we're going to get into it, but like
even it's just so exciting. I'm like, let's get to Disney, bitch. Like,
but I'm like, even with like Miley Cyrus or like JoJo Siwa or like Demi Lovato, like these people who had to have these like, or what's her fucking name? Not Sydney Sweeney. I always want to call her Sydney Sweeney.
Hilary Duff?
Sabrina Carpenter. Like hers was less of a like big transition. But you know what I'm saying? Like the switch from girlhood to womanhood is seen as much more of a dramatic, over-sexualized moment because they didn't have the opportunity to grow into it regularly.
Yeah. Like, and it's like their puberty is just like completely missed. Like it's not like it's hidden completely. Yeah. Which like, as we all know, like is horrible for them. And like also for us, like watching as kids, like what the fuck's going on? Like we talk about that all the time without really saying like, this is like a problem in terms of the puberty thing. It's always like, well, why does that girl look younger than she is or older than she is? It's like, it's all on purpose. So let's move into a little bit more on shame within purity culture and like what that brings for people. We did ask you guys the poll when you were a teen, which really like preteen, like 13 to 17, I guess. Did you feel pressured to be abstinent? And 44% said yes, and 56% said no. I mean, like, I definitely knew that, like, I feel like I knew that, like, sex, I did think, like, sex was, like, wrong for me to be doing.
Yeah.
Not because of, like, my family or anything, but just, like, that was just kind of the vibe. It's like, I'm too young, you know? And, like, are you too young at 13? Like, I don't really know, okay? I really don't know. I think, like, we should just, like, if we were given good resources on, like, how to stay safe, like, it wouldn't really matter if it's too young, too old. It's, like, everyone, like, feels good. But I personally, like, I didn't. And, like, I came out as queer, like, right in that time zone. And so I definitely didn't think that type of hooking up was bad. Yeah. I just thought, like, the whole, like, dick and pussy shit was like that.
That's interesting. So, like, when you look at abstinence and stuff like that, did you separate it? Like, as like it wasn't all sexual shit, it was just that type of sex?
Yes. Like I really thought like me like kissing girls, like eating pussy, like that was fine. Okay. Because like like you're good.
It's
like
not
I
really
don't,
talked about either. Like eating
it's not
pussy
really
isn't
talked about. And I wasn't good, you know. I
Yeah.
could have got STIs. Like there's also
Yeah.
like female condoms, like whatever, or just like ways to stay safe during lesbian sex experiences. But no, because I really like, it was a big emphasis on pregnancy for me more than STIs, because if you remember like 2000s,
Yeah.
like teen pregnancy was fucking
Was the
huge. And
biggest
I
thing.
did think it instilled a fear within me. Like I definitely, I mean, it's not like, it would be horrible to be pregnant at 13 years old. Like
Yeah,
obviously, like you should be afraid of that.
Yeah.
But like I do think it like prolonged like longer, where it's like on the men's side, like I can't be fucking because I'm gonna get pregnant and I'm gonna die, like the
Yeah.
Mean Girls thing. But for women, I was like I lost my virginity in the back of a Jeep, like with this girl that I didn't even really know. I just like wanted to like I think
Yeah.
that's when I lost it. Like it's like hard to know because
Probably. And how old
losing your
were you?
virginity is like so heteronormative that
Yes.
I'm like, what did it even really
Yes.
mean for me to lose mine? Like that was the first time that I was like naked and like things were happening. Like, so I'm like, I think that was it.
And how old were you?
I was, when that happened, I was like 17, 18.
Okay.
And like I had sucked dick before, but like
Okay.
it never felt
Yeah.
like intimate sex. Like
Yeah.
that was the first time I was like, okay.
This is sex. Like this.
Like
is
she's trying to
intercourse.
make me come for
Yeah.
real. And like no one else has done that.
Bro, because boys.
So what about you, babe?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I've talked about it in the past, in this episode and other episodes. Like, the first time I started doing sex, the first time I was fingered, I didn't know what it was. That was the first sexual thing I did, and I was 12. And then the first time I had sex, it was like a week after my 15th birthday, because I was like, no, we have to wait till I'm 15. But yeah, it was definitely like, I didn't think like kissing boys was bad. I did like know it was bad, like shame, whatever, but 100% after I had sex and the other stuff, I was like, you know, by this point I'm already a fucking whore.
Yeah.
So whatever, it doesn't matter.
Yeah. And I was definitely like I think the first time I sucked dick I was like 14. So like that was like a more whatever.
I didn't suck dick till later. I was scared.
I was like ready, bro, because I didn't want to kiss. I didn't want them to touch me. I just wanted to like do something. Like, I don't know. Because when I got penetrated by a strap-on, like with my first girlfriend, that also felt like losing my virginity.
Yeah.
Because that was the first time I got penetrated by something that was dick-like. And like virginity, you think dick. Like, I did. Like, that is so, you know, it's kind of complicated. But yeah, I feel like lucky that I didn't feel those pressures like at all. Like the queerness, like honestly really saved me. Like who knows what would have happened? I don't know. But this article from Autostraddle, you guys, we're gonna link it below. Please read the full article. I did. It was so like amazing on just like how they outlined like all of the shame that is entrenched. Okay. About all of the shame that is entrenched within purity culture, okay? So I'm just going to read a little bit of it, but I really wanted to put in more and I held back, so please go read it. The article makes an incredibly important point when we talk about purity culture, which is that depending on where in the United States you grew up, you may have had some pretty distinct experiences with it. But whether you grew up in an evangelical Christian household or town, or whether, like me, you've lived your whole life in one of the most liberal cities in the world, purity culture, to one extent or another, is the water we swim in within a white supremacist, cis, hetero patriarchy. The ideas of purity are so ubiquitous that at times they're almost invisible and reach out far beyond the realm of sex education. Purity culture is white supremacist and colonial, and even stretches its fingers into another huge source of shame and harm, which is diet culture. So purity culture is not just religion, not just sex ed. It's fucking everywhere, bitch. It's the water we swim in, like in a white supremacist world. And like all of that, like we've looked at a lot of blatant, you know, purity things, like the movements, the purity balls, the rings. But like, what about the nuanced little shit that we've all experienced and like maybe can't even pinpoint because it is so hidden?
Yeah, because even like virginity culture and stuff like that too. Like when you think about like the fashion sector of the world and how they usually have like younger girls starting to model really early that are almost like prepubescent, and they have them look very like virgin like, but also sexualize it because it's like this taboo thing. Like it's just it's so weird and creepy because like you said, like aging people down and aging them up and stuff like that. Like there were so many famous women models, actresses that were like really, really young, but they were fetishized because of their like virgin looking qualities, which is also very white. Like the whole virginity thing and whiteness go like very hand in hand as well.
Yeah. And I learned these from the YouTube videos I watched that we're going to mention and are linked below. But it's like, by doing all of this and like wanting everyone to be pure and be a virgin, it's like you're literally like talking about sex like more than anyone ever would. If you like, it's literally all like, what do you mean that you're trying to like you said, like hide kids from sex and like It's like you're introducing it to them when they're prepubescent, bro.
And you're just ensuring like I think I'm the fucking perfect case, and thankfully my shit was not as deep as a lot of this stuff was, but like because it was so much like no, I'm going to anyway, and then you're just going to do it in an unhealthy way and take it to the extreme because like you're not taught that. Like if something is ever taboo, I think it's the same with like drinking culture in America, right? It's like oh, it's taboo, like you shouldn't do it, blah blah blah. Our drinking age is 21 compared to 18 in a lot of other countries. It just makes kids go like all out more. Same with dare, drugs and alcohol. Like anything that you put like all this shame onto and all this no versus normalizing it. If it was normalized, I think way less people would do it if they were actually taught about like, okay, this is the good part, this is the bad part. It's your body, like it's biological shit. And especially when it talks about the abstinence and purity culture where it's like, you know, you have to prevent anything that's going to make you sexually aroused. Your body is going to get sexually aroused automatically.
We're not God.
Like
we can't
shit
control
just
that.
Happens. Like you brush against someone, you see this thing, like
it's like you're setting them up for shame regardless if they fuck anyone or not. It's like you can't even be sexually aroused, which is like against your own like body. Like it's just like ensuring shame, like literally no question. Yeah. At some part of your journey, whether you stay Christian, you stay pure, it's still entrenched with shame. Yep. I really like that word right now. So the article goes on to kind of give advice, right? So it's like for people that maybe grew up in these spaces and like what to do now when they're dealing with all this shame. So they talk about going to sex therapy specifically or other therapists and like getting involved in your community, but like emphasis on like therapists or professionals that are aware of like how this is all throughout our society, not in just a religious aspect, but like in our white supremacist world, patriarchy and all of that, because it's important. And the article did mention some books, which I'm just going to put on the screen for you guys if you want to check it out. One said pretty much everything by Bell Hooks, but the rest are books. The Will to Change, we read that.
Yeah, we read that.
And Pleasure Activism by Adrienne Marie Brown. I actually do have that book. I haven't read it yet, but I think like seeing this in the article, I'm like, pleasure activism, like I guess it does like have to do with all of this. Yeah, like it's literally right here. I'm looking at it. And so if you do decide to pick up any of these books and look at them, the article says, as you read, reflect on the ways in which you've internalized normative messages about sex, love, and what is good and what is bad or shameful in your own life. This can look like writing in a journal or getting together with like-minded friends and starting an unlearning group to support each other in the process. Make a list of your shoulds, the rules you follow automatically and without question, and ask yourself whose voice you hear them in. Is it your mother's voice, your father's, a teacher's? Is it your voice from a certain age? What does your pubescent self or adolescent self tell you about how you should be in the world, for example? What are the feelings behind these rules? When we get very quiet with ourselves and try to practice compassion and non-judgment, even with the parts of ourselves we most want to change, we often find that the motivating factor behind them is fear. What does following the rules of purity culture purport to protect you from? So just some food for thought. I love a good journaling prompt. I love those questions. And I do think like emphasis on like, if you're thinking about their specific rules you should follow based on like your childhood and teen years, it's like, yeah, whose voice do you hear? Like your parents, the school, just the general society, like your voice as a kid that strongly believed in all of these things. And obviously I can't relate to this type of trauma, but it is very, very real. And it's like, talk about healing your inner child. Like this is like next level healing your inner child, you know, even just going to a religious school and all the things you've talked about. It's like, you need to do that.
Yeah. And when I was in like a rehabilitation center place for like mental health and stuff, we had, you know, classes every day, but we had this one class that was about fear. And it was kind of this type of stuff. And it was talking about, you know, your body needs fear. Like as a human, you need fear to be able to avoid danger, run from scary animal, like all of that stuff. But also like all those scripts, like this is saying that you pick up on. And like, I remember that being one of the exercises from like my time there that was like really, really helpful. Like writing down like all of the things that you are afraid of and then questioning why. Because I think when you do it, sometimes you're like, why am I afraid of this? Like, you know, like you don't think about your fears constantly. Like, oh, I'm afraid of heights. Like, oh, I'm afraid of like, you know, being kidnapped or something like that. But like when you start analyzing them and you're like, oh, this is just a false narrative that was like pushed on me when I was little by a parent, by school, by whatever, you can start to like unpack that and unlearn that and see the ways it's affecting your current like sex life, relationships, even your personal life and the goals you want to achieve, you know?
Yeah. And I know it's hard to like sit down and journal, but exactly like what you're saying, like it's not going to be your first thought. Like it does take some time and reflection, but I think it's really important. And like, I really wish like anyone and everyone and you that's like been affected by this stuff, like finds healing and like understands that like your body is your own and like Jesus still loves you. You know what I mean? Like, honestly though, like he does.
Because
so,
Jesus loved, like
it's also ass backwards.
Yeah, he loved everyone.
Like,
Mary
I'm cool
Magdalene,
with Jesus.
Guys, like, Mary Magdalene was a prostitute. And, like, I know a lot of them, like, had these situations and then devoted their entire life to Christ. Or, like, became an apostle and, like, whatever. But it's, like, I don't know. Like, you
like,
can
their
do
testimonials, it's, like, something happened. Like, you had a near life-death experience. Or, like, you did OnlyFans forever and then, like, found Christ. It's, like, people, and it's like, that's real. Like, spirituality is like a beautiful thing, but it's like this shit that we're talking about, like purity culture, kids, like not having a say and just like being forced into these situations is a problem.
Yes.
And it's devastating. Just some stats for like, you know, what is going on during this time and like some numbers about like who was Christian, who wasn't, like how, are people still Christian, are there still as many Christians there was today than during the 90s movements and things like that. According to the Pew Research Center, about 2/3 of Americans still identify as Christians, but this number has been declining over the years. In the early 90s, about 90% of U.S. adults said that they were Christian.
Wow.
By 2020, this number dropped to around 64%. So it went from 90 to 64 in 20 years. During the same time, the number of people who don't follow any religion, often called nuns, grew from about 16% to nearly 30%. And not nuns like nuns. Like the article is like N-O-N-E-S.
Yeah.
So it was also talking about how research has definitely been found that a lot of people that were Christian and now aren't, like have a lot of mental health disorders like anxiety, depression, eating disorders, also like diet culture, like they said, is a part of this as well, trying to stay young and pure, skinny, whole-bodied, I don't know, prepubescent. A lot of people struggle with sexual shame and like have trouble forming healthy sexual relationships. Like you said, it's like these people are actually showing you like the opposite. You don't want your partner to control things about your body and about you and all of these things and like be the one man that gets to have your virginity. Like there's nothing, he's not getting anything. It's still yours, even when you lost your virginity, it's still your virginity. Like, it's no one else's.
Yeah. And is virginity even a thing? Like, yeah.
I don't know. For me, I'm like confused. I have no idea when I lost mine, because it really is so, like, it's so homophobic. And like, this is why I've always have, like, I never like liked organized religion, like Christian Catholicism, because it's so homophobic. And like, my experience growing up with 2 moms, like, none of it was represented. Like, I just didn't get any of it.
Yeah.
Reading a little bit more, the effects of purity culture have been apparent for a long time. In 1953, sexologist Alfred Kinsey found that Christian teachings made it harder for women to enjoy sexual pleasure. More recent research shows that people who are very religious often have lower sexual satisfaction, less sexual activity, and more sexual shame, especially women. And it's not a bad thing to have low sexual activity or no sexual activity, but the thing we're looking at is the shame. Like,
and that's
more
the
shame.
Kinsey reports. That's the Kinsey reports.
Yeah,
that
was
reported that like men have had sexual contact with another man, like 50-something% or some high number. So yeah, the Kinsey reports fucking rocked people's worlds.
And another study showed that a lot of religious women had low sexual confidence, which obviously makes sense.
Yeah.
And more than that, Catholic women in particular frequently have lower overall self-esteem. Even Christian women who feel okay with casual sex may feel conflicted because their sexual desires don't match religious teachings, which leads to more sexual shame. A study on Catholic women's sexual attitudes found that women who left the church, whether for another faith or no faith at all, often felt more sexual shame as well. This shows that it can be hard for people to move past religious teachings about sexuality, even after they leave the church. The effects of purity culture and sexual shame can last a long time and harm sexual health. Okay, so now we're going to get into the Disney Channel, guys. And like, honestly, like, it's like an ongoing joke in my family. Like, I wanted to be like the Autumn Channel, like when I was little.
Hey.
Like, I loved the Disney Channel. I had a sick obsession with it. Like, it was like, looking back.
I see you being Disney. Like,
I
you
mean,
very
duh.
much have,
like, of course I was,
Yeah.
bro. I'm like the ultimate fangirl. Like, that shit ate me up. Like, and especially when they started doing the whole like Disney stars to music pipeline, which we're going to talk about, like when they made that decision, like, no, all of our stars are not only going to act in these shows, but they're going to sing. They're going to have albums. They're going to go on tour, like enter
merch.
like that whole era. Like, I loved it. Like, that was all me. Like, I loved musicals. I loved singing, the dancing, all of it. So I was very obsessed, but we asked you guys, were you obsessed with Disney Channel? Did you obsess over Disney Channel as a kid? 56% said yes, 37% said no, but I watched, and 7% said I never watched.
Yeah, I would say I was probably obsessed. My first favorite was That's So Raven, and what was the Hilary Duff one called? Lizzie McGuire. Yep, and then Hannah Montana. And I really did like The Sweet Life of Zack and Cody too. Like, those were my top 4. High School Musical, Cheetah Girls was a fucking moment. Like, Cheetah Girls, that album.
Same, all of that. Wizards of Waverly Place.
I didn't
did you like that?
Wizards of Waverly
No,
Place.
you weren't
as
down.
much, no.
I did. I loved Selena Gomez.
I just didn't
in that
love
fucking
her.
show.
I don't know. I always loved Demi more.
That's
Not that you have to
okay.
compare them, but like,
Right.
I
but
did
yeah.
like Demi.
Oh yeah, Camp Rock. Like
Yeah.
the whole thing. It was like everything.
Yeah.
It was just like my time. So like being able to like reflect on this like now, like after watching that growing up, like it's very interesting for us to do, honestly. Because I had no idea what was going on, like
Behind
at
the
all.
scenes.
And I do just want to say that, you know, we're going to talk about Demi Lovato, Miley Cyrus, the Jonas Brothers. Like, I could not find any actual evidence that, like, Disney was like, yes, like, everyone needs to get purity rings and we need to all be doing this. Like, I'm very sure they were doing that, but, like, the Jonas Brothers' dad was, like, a preacher or a pastor or something. Like, Miley Cyrus, her also religious background. So, like, it could have been that they just luckily all came from religious backgrounds and, like, purity ring, boom, got it. But just want to say, I didn't find any evidence that Disney was, like, forcing this on them necessarily. So, in the late 2000s, a purity ring was the must-have accessory for every teen pop star. a trend seemingly sparked by Jessica Simpson, who famously waited until after she married Nick Lachey.
No, Nick Lachey.
Nick Lachey.
From
Thank you.
Love is Blind. The host. Now he's married
Oh, shit.
Yeah.
That's tea.
Yeah.
Okay. And on a broader scale, Hilary Duff, who proved Disney Channel stars could translate into profitable pop acts, many of the late aughts teen idols had one uniting feature: their outspoken commitment to chastity. A promise physically represented by silver purity rings, many of which read "True Love Waits." Nearly all of Disney Channel stars spent a good chunk of the late aughts discussing their dedication to waiting until marriage to have sex, some even encouraging fans to do the same. I'll be so for real, I didn't know about any of this shit when I was growing up. Did you?
I don't
That they
think
were wearing
so.
the rings?
No, I don't think so. I do remember Britney Spears in her interview, them asking her about Justin Timberlake. Like, I remember that, like, kind of happening.
That was, like, right before this happened. And, like, a lot of sources say, like, that wasn't a coincidence. It's like Disney wanted to prove their stars were not that.
We're not Britney Spears. Exactly. Yeah.
And Miley Cyrus herself was, like, so many times, like, compared to Lindsay Lohan, like Paris Hilton, Britney Spears is like, don't be that girl. And I do remember, like, my dad saying something about how, like, he's like, you know, I'm so happy that, like, Miley Cyrus, like, has her dad, like, to keep her in check and, like, make sure,
her and her
like,
dad.
their whole... I know.
But her
so
dad
I'm
is
like,
an asshole now. Like, that whole, like,
I know.
she doesn't even talk to him. Like,
I know. But I do remember, like, I don't remember the purity rings, but I do remember, like, overall being like, these are quote unquote good girls. Like, Miley Cyrus listens to her dad. Like, she's wholesome. Like, even as a kid, like, I got that, like,
but
a
I
little
feel
bit.
like with Miley Cyrus, and one of the reasons I loved her so much is, like, even though she was, like, a good girl and all of that, she had that, like, spice. Like, she always kind of had that, like, I'm, like, confident as fuck. Like, I'm, like, independent, like, all of that. So it's, like, when she did her whole whatever thing, it was like, yes, bitch, like, that was always her personality.
Right.
You know, like,
and
she
it was finally
good,
just broke loose.
But, like, even when she was good, like, she had, like, a spice about her that was just, like, she's gonna go against the grain.
And, like, a spunk.
Like,
she
Hilary
really
Duff,
did.
like, not as much. And, like, Hilary Duff never had that, like, moment. Like, you know, like, I feel like she got out right before. And, like, Raven was like, I'm done with this shit. Like, bye.
Right. Exactly. Because she had been doing the child star thing for fucking ever. And by the time she got to Disney, she was like older, baby. Like 17, 18. Yeah. Whereas, like, Hannah Montana was like, Miley Cyrus was like 12 at the first season.
Yeah, she was really young.
Yeah. So a lot of articles echoed like what we were saying about Britney Spears. It's like Disney wanted to be different. They didn't want to have like people like Britney Spears like having sex and like being a normal teenager on their platform. And like they realized that the Christian wholesomeness of their brand like worked really well, because you have to remember like who's purchasing the things for their kids. So it's like they want to appeal to parents in that sense as well.
But I will also add something, because Mickey Mouse Clubhouse was
Britney Spears was on Mickey Mouse Clubhouse.
So was Justin Timberlake. And a lot of those stars. And that is like pre-Disney Channel. So
like they were Disney stars.
And like, I know this article, I don't know if you're reading it or summarizing it, but like the cliche of like how child stars are always fucked up. I feel like they almost wanted to double down, because those stars were Disney Channel stars. So they almost wanted to double down to make sure that they were pure, so that they didn't end up like Britney and
that didn't happen again.
Yeah. So it's like,
I know. And then that brings me to the point again where it's like they're so worried that like their stars are going to be like sexualized or like go through media scrutiny like Britney Spears, or like do those things. But it's like now they're just like pushing like a different thing about sex. Like, we're pure, we're waiting. It's like you're still talking about sex though. Like, and it's like being, as we'll learn, like the stars were like asked about these things constantly.
And
like especially the Jonas Brothers
on the shows. And there were posters.
And with like older guys. Like, what the fuck? Like what are we talking about? What are we talking about, dude? So this video essay by Ashley Norton, I'm going to put a screenshot on the screen, was absolutely incredible. It's like a quick watch, 25 minutes. Highly recommend. A lot of the inspiration for this episode came directly from her video. But she essentially did a video on, like, why did young celebrities, again, publicly declare, not just like a pledge in the ground at the mall with your Christian friends, like True Love Waits, but like in Teen Bop magazine. Yeah. Right. Like, it was everywhere about these damn purity rings, okay? And she was talking about, for Disney, this was the perfect formula to keep their stars kid-friendly and fill that gap in mainstream pop with wholesome stars that their parents would support, like viewers' parents. And she did mention, like, the Sprouse brothers and, like, Raven Simone, like, they weren't a part of this. Like, they didn't talk about this at all. And, like, I saw a recent interview of Cole Sprouse, I believe, saying that he was, don't make fun of me. What's the religion where you don't believe in any god?
Atheist?
Yeah. He was atheist at this time, and, like, he remembers, like, everyone having purity rings, and, like, he described himself as, like, that annoying kid that couldn't shut up about atheism. So it's, like, not every Disney Channel star was a part of this, okay? But Miley Cyrus, Demi Lovato, Selena Gomez, Jonas Brothers, again, huge.
The biggest
for
ones.
This sort of thing. Yeah. And she just talked about how it's all about branding, like I said. Like, parents are the one purchasing these things, and parents do want these stars to be role models for their children, not just someone on the TV screen. They want that overall wholesome personality on and off screen
for your kid
as
to
well.
Look up to.
So your kid can look up to. And like I said, this is where I got this from the video. It's like Miley Cyrus specifically had a lot of pressures, like after the Britney Spears scandal and Lindsay Lohan, because I don't know if Lindsay Lohan was ever on Disney, but like, oh yeah, she was. Like Freaky Friday. Like that was
Is that Disney?
Yeah.
I thought that played on ABC. Is it Disney? Yeah, but she was wasn't like a regular scheduled programming.
Disney, but she was out there during this time.
Music videos were on Disney. There were like a lot of people that popped
a lot
in
of
and
crossover.
Out. Yeah.
It's like they knew.
Because they were hot, yeah.
Right. So I definitely got a lot of my inspiration from this video and like a lot of talking points that we've said already. So like creds to Ashley Norton. She had a lot of footage that like I wasn't able to find either, and like a lot of other people weren't able to find. So she's really doing it. So we're going to start with Demi Lovato, who I love. And I also kind of saw that spunk in her from the beginning, or just that like she had something to say, similar to Miley Cyrus, how you were mentioning.
Yeah.
So she has a documentary called Dancing with the Devil. I don't know if you've seen it. It's just like about her journey. Yeah.
And then the new one is by her too. Yeah.
Right. So we're just talking about the Dancing with the Devil one. I saw this YouTube video from Entertainment Tonight, and they were kind of like highlighting stuff from the documentary. But I just cut all the entertainment stuff out and just left Demi's voice. So hopefully that's not like a problem. Like I did put the words on the screen anyway, so let's watch that really quick.
Okay.
I know what I'm about to say is going to shock people too, but when I was a teenager, I lost my virginity in a rape. So what, I'm supposed to come out to the public after saying I have a promise ring? 6 months later, I'm supposed to say, well, actually, I had sex. Even though it was rape, we're hooking up, but I said, hey, this is not going any farther. I'm a virgin and I don't want to lose it this way. And that didn't matter to them. They did it anyways. And I internalized it, and I told myself it was my fault because I still went in the room with him. I still hooked up with him. Here was the thing. I was a part of that Disney crowd that publicly said they were waiting till marriage. And then I had to see this person all the time. And so I stopped eating and, you know, coped in other ways. And you know what? It. I'm just gonna say it. My Me Too story is me telling somebody that someone did this to me and they never got in trouble for it. They never got taken out of the movie they were in. But I've just kept it quiet because I've always had something to say, and it's like, I don't know, I'm tired of opening my mouth, so there's the tea.
Yeah, this is so real, and it made me so sad in the beginning how she was like, I lost my virginity through a rape, because that's not losing your virginity to me. But exactly how she was saying the shame and everything within that, it's like, that's how it's painted out to be. Like, you're a bruised fruit, you're a lock with many keys, you're fucked up now, even though that was literal violence against you, and then nothing was done about it. So it's like...
Right. And we talk about, abstinence only sex education is like really bad and all these things, but it's like, what if you do get sexually assaulted? Like, what does that mean? Like, are you educating your purity students about that? Like, no, I don't think you are.
There's nothing.
It's going to be your fault regardless, even if you were assaulted. And so I just think like her story is like obviously so important in general, but like especially in this context is like, as you can see, she tried to speak up. No one believed her or just nothing was done about it. She developed an eating disorder. She had substance addiction problems. And like it all, not all stemmed from the purity ring, but that's definitely a huge added
part.
layer that if she didn't have that, it would have made it a little bit easier. But like that pressure and like the public interviews and all of that, it's like she's like, what am I supposed to say? Like, am I supposed to keep this ring on? Like, it's just like really, really sad. And I just like, my heart goes out to her, honestly.
Yeah, because then you're like, you have to put on this mask to the public. Then you feel like a liar. You feel internalized shame. Like all this stuff you're dealing with by yourself because no one around you is supporting you. And you're a role model for so many kids. Like,
I know the role model thing has
so
me
fucked.
I just don't know about that. But the article echoes kind of what we're saying, that like this is the other side of a purity pledge. It contains the implicit idea that sex makes a person impure, that the experience leaves a mark that doesn't go away. It's a self-destruction pattern that she carried on into adulthood, meaning Demi, married by addiction. But how much of that desire for numbness was connected with shame she'd taken on from someone else's crime? How much of that pain was she taught to inflict on herself because she didn't live up to the image she'd been sold of a chaste, repressed Christian girl?
Ew. Yeah, exactly. Because where does it all go? Inside.
Yeah. So now we're going to talk about the Jonas Brothers a little bit. And like it was like, again, it's not just the girls of Disney, like it's also the Jonas Brothers. And like I mentioned, like they did come from a really religious background, but for whatever reason, the media, like the VMAs we're going to talk about, it's like they really latched on to the Jonas Brothers, like having these damn purity rings.
And I almost wonder if it's because they were so put up as like the boys to thirst over for young girls, and maybe like their purity made it more okay for like parents to be like, oh, it's fine that my daughter has 1,000 posters of them because at least, I don't know.
Like maybe, right?
Yeah.
It does make you think about that because they really were. Like it was Nick Jonas for me. What about
I
you?
liked Joe. I wasn't huge on.
We
I like
always like
Zac
different
Efron
things.
more. I like Zac Efron and Corbin Bleu and Chris
Oh,
Brown.
Corbin Bleu, bro.
Corbin Bleu.
And Jump In was
And even
actually
High School
a thing.
Musical.
And Keke Palmer for my gay ass too. I was
Yeah.
like Keke Palmer and Jump In, like, oh my God. But yes. So apparently they've all written things. I think Joe Jonas like has a book or something, like a personal essay that this article pulled from. So we're going to read some quotes of what the brothers have said about this in interviews. So Joe says, what's discouraging about that chapter of our life is that at 13 or 14, my sex life was being discussed. Like, again, these were young kids. Young kids. Like, think about 13 and 14. Like, what?
Publicly, yeah.
He said, it was very tough to digest it in real time, trying to understand what it was going to mean to me and what I wanted my choices to be, while having the media speaking about a 13-year-old sex life. I don't know if it would fly in this day and age, the artist continued. Very strange. I remember this interview with this guy whose entire agenda was to focus on the rings, the singer recalled later in his Vulture essay. So yeah, that's the essay that Joe Jonas wrote in Vulture, I guess. He kept pushing the subject, and when we insisted that we didn't want to talk about it, he told us, I can write whatever I want, which terrified us. That's the thing. We didn't know any better, and we just wanted to make people happy. Although Joe said he later learned that I don't have to answer any questions I don't want to, he was seemingly still surprised by that reporter's insistence. Like, why do you even care about my 15-year-old brother's sex life? He wrote. Like, the fact that they were like they're not even like fully like formed like as teenagers, like they don't really know like what a purity ring is like really doing and like what that means and how people are looking at it. And like, imagine being like that young and you're like, I don't want to talk about that. And the reporter's like, I can write whatever I want.
They're threatening
like,
a child.
Right. And there's like no, it's like, where were their parents? Like, where were their manager? It's like, there's no protection for these kids and like in the spotlight. And like, we could get into that. It's a different episode, but it's like, that is terrifying.
Yeah.
You know? So I just think that's crazy. And then the article says, the bizarre fixation on young Disney stars' virginities reached an uncomfortable crescendo at the 2008 MTV Music Video Awards. While emceeing the show, British comic Russel Brand took nearly every opportunity to lambaste the Jonas Brothers for sporting purity rings, even launching into a whole bit about striving to deflower all three of the boys' band's then 15, 19, and 20-year-old members. So the VMAs in 2008 were like a fucking time, bitch. Like when I was doing this research, like so much shit happened. But anyway, so we're just going to watch these two quick clips.
Beginning to wonder, you know, are the Jonas Brothers quite what they seem? Because if they were, how come I've got this little ring now? I mean, initially he was a little bit reluctant, but eventually he sort of saw that it was for the best. And let me tell you, it was an enjoyable and pleasant experience, and I wish the rest of the Jonas Brothers the best of luck, because over the course of the evening, I want a collection of these bloody things. Beginning to wonder, you know, are the Jonas Brothers quite what they seem? Because if they were, how come I've got this little ring now? I mean, initially he was a little bit reluctant, but eventually he sort of saw that it was for the best. And let me tell you, it was an enjoyable and pleasant experience, and I wish the rest of the Jonas Brothers the best of luck, because over the course of the evening, I want a collection of these bloody things.
Okay, so I feel like on the one side, it's like Russel Brand. It's fucked up because it's just like, one, you're talking about like children. I mean, at least two of them are over 18, but one is not, so that is like weird. And two, it's also like toxic masculinity and stuff going on too. Like if you want to wait to have sex, like that should, you can, like, you don't have to prove that you're like a man or whatever by like fucking. And then we've got the slut shaming from Jordan Sparks, which is just like, okay, like the slut shaming, it was like everyone was being sluts in this era, but it was also a lot of slut shaming, because this was like the Jersey Shore, Britney Spears, Lindsay Lohan,
like,
Paris Hilton, Kim Kardashian. This was a crazy time.
We were growing up, and like I didn't know about any of this shit that was going on. Like, that is absolutely horrible that these fucking people were doing this. But like thinking back, like as a kid watching, like I truly did not know about any of this shit. And maybe that means my parents were good at protecting me from it. Or like Disney tried to push it away. Like you definitely weren't seeing shit like this from them. Like they would try to hide everything. But it's like, it's just insane that like Disney went through all of this to like get everyone purity rings. Like everyone's pure. And then they still managed to sexualize it by like using the rings as like a way to sexualize it. Like that's what I mean. It's like, it's wild to me. Like 2008, like this was truly a time.
Right.
So I really don't know.
This is crazy.
But another huge inspo for the episode was this YouTube video that I'm going to put on the screen by Cheyenne Lynn. It was absolutely phenomenal. And I did get some quotes from her video, and kind of echoing that idea that the Jonas Brothers weren't even sure all about what the purity rings meant, and like if people were looking at them and like thinking they should go get one too, and like that sort of confusion.
Yeah.
They were so young. One of the Jonas Brothers said, "We decided at one point, look, this is not who we are. This is annoying. People are making fun of it anyway. We can make fun of it ourselves." That's when they started to kind of like take them off and be like, I don't want to do this anymore. And Joe Jonas also said, back then when we explained that we had made these promises to ourselves when we were younger, a few months later it comes out we're in some cult and that we're in these little staged Mickey Mouse kids. People were coming up to us saying, "Thank you so much. I'm waiting because you guys are too." And we just thought, no, that's not what we're about. So it's like, yeah, if any random kid puts on a purity ring, okay, but like the Jonas Brothers are like the Jonas Brothers, and so it's like, yeah, all these kids are like, oh, we're waiting too. And then like maybe they felt like guilty as kids when like they didn't even fully know what they were doing.
Right.
Like it's just absolutely wild. And like Disney like really leaning into this, like, yes, they all have purity rings, they're all wholesome. Like, it just makes me sick to my stomach.
It's so weird. It's so creepy.
So now let's talk about Miley Cyrus. I watched the YouTube video from Larissa Styles It All. I'll put it on the screen. So Miley was a part of all of this. She had a purity ring, okay? And I'm going to mention 2 quote-unquote scandals that she unfortunately went through during this purity times, okay? So in 2008, she was 15 years old, and her email and MySpace were hacked. Do you remember that? And there were leaked photos of her and her boyfriend, like, cuddling on a couch. Like, the degree of, like, this sexual nature was... I couldn't, like, figure it out. Like, obviously, I can't see the photos.
Yeah.
But the media was saying, like, nude photos, like, intimate photos. But, like, I read from some sources where it was, like, they were literally, like, cuddling on a couch. But it was, like, her and her boyfriend, whatever. And then
That's digital violence also because it's hacked and leaked. It's not her.
And she's fucking 15. But the iconic Vanity Fair cover in 2015, she was posed like, it looked like she was naked, even though there's pictures from on set where it's like she was wearing boots and like pants and like literally just her back was the only thing showing. Everything else was covered. But it was all like Miley Cyrus, naked, Vanity Fair, like, and this was in 2015, so it's like things were starting, like she was approaching her like breakout of the Disney machine era. But there's a lot of articles out there where it's like it was just an artistic photo shoot. Like her dad was there, her aunt.
It looks very
like,
Twilight.
Right. Don't even say the words Twilight. But yeah, and then there was another picture that's of her and her dad where she's like, they kind of like look like a couple. That's what people were saying. Just like sexualized photos of her. And like obviously Disney didn't really like that. And like some bad shit happened to her, I'm sure, because of this. But after all this happened, she was quoted in an article in 2008. She said, "I like to think of myself as the girl that no one can get, that no one can keep in their hand." A teenage Miley Cyrus told TV Guide in 2008, roughly 2 years into Hannah Montana's run. She said, "Even at my age, a lot of girls are starting to fall," she continued, "and I think if it's a commitment girls make, that's great." So this was before the Vanity Fair thing. It was in 2008. My bad. But I'm like, the pressure to like bring that up and like
to
people
fall.
asking
the girls
the
are
stars.
falling.
It's like, and it's like they definitely were pressured to always talk about being pure and abstinent, like because of the Britney Spears shit, like we talked about. It's like Disney was really locked down on like not making sure that never happened again.
Yeah.
And then in 2019, she's like recalling on these memories and saying like, "I wanted to stop being Hannah Montana once I was 18 because it felt ridiculous. The minute I had sex, I was kind of like, I can't put the fucking wig on again," she told Elle. "It got weird. It just felt like I was grown up." And this is from a quote I got from Cheyenne Lynn's video. And she was the one that like pointed out that like it's interesting on how all the purity ended up making them more sexualized in the media. Like it's not giving what you wanted it to give, Disney.
Yeah.
Like what are you
like
doing?
Opposite effect. Yeah.
Right. And then a quick note on Vanessa Hudgens, like in her leaked nude situation. Like I remember again watching High School Musical. I thought Vanessa Hudgens was like a literal goddess. Like I was very gay. Like didn't know it yet. Like I was younger in elementary school, but like I remember,
and you
like,
guys kind of look alike,
bro. So I was like, yeah, exactly. So I was like, it's me,
the
like
stereotype.
But I remember like looking up Vanessa Hudgens nude because like I wanted to peep, like I wanted to see that.
Yeah,
shit.
all the boys in school
like
were looking them up. I remember.
I was just like those boys looking it up. Could never find anything, but anyway.
Yeah,
so
same.
that whole scandal obviously wasn't fucking good for them, and that was in 2008. Okay. So this is Joe Jonas kind of recalling like his time working at Disney, like while this was literally happening. He said, "We were working with Disney in 2007 when the Vanessa Hudgens nude photo scandal happened. We heard that she had to be in the Disney offices for a whole day because they were trying to figure out how to keep her on lockdown." okay?
Bro.
We'd hear execs talking about it, and they would tell us that they were so proud of us for not making the same mistakes, which made us feel like we could never, ever mess up. We didn't want to disappoint anyone, our parents, our fans, our employers, so we put incredible pressure on ourselves, the kind of pressure that no teenager should be under. So obviously Hudgens received hate from the media and also Disney fans, and she ended up issuing a public apology. And Disney made it very clear that they supported this public apology, and like, she messed up, she was to blame, like they wanted her to give that public apology about it.
Even though, again, it's
of this
digital violence because they were leaked.
But it's like, I know there's no space for that in the conversation. It's wild. So not only did Hudgens suffer due to the invasion of her privacy, but Disney also used the situation against other young stars, pressuring them into fitting in with the purest ideals. After all, this was essential to the wholesome Disney brand identity. In the age of Disney purity, Hudgens broke a vital law to remain chaste and innocent, and the public persecuted her. Certainly, we can all understand the trauma this experience must have had on the 18-year-old actress. The consequences following this explicit invasion of her privacy are simply unimaginable.
Yeah.
So it's just like really interesting to look at like the political movements, the religious purity movements, the Disney star era. Like, Disney's not like this anymore.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't include it because I don't want the episode to be so long. But, like, we were just talking about Shake It Up with Zendaya and Bella Thorne. Like, they weren't doing any of this. And, like, from what I remember, like, Zendaya always had, like, a sex-positive lens. And, like, she, like, talked about safe sex in an article. Like, it was very different, you know?
Yeah.
So it's just, like, interesting.
So maybe they learned, but I don't know.
I don't even know. I think, like, the stars maybe just had enough or something.
Yeah.
But this is my favorite part of the episode. Why did Disney do this? And we've essentially been talking about it the whole time. But first, we asked you guys, why do you think Disney pushed such a strong narrative of purity? And 49% said Christianity is a huge part of American culture. 38% said creating the perfect role model is marketable. And 13% said Disney wanted to control their stars. And I think it's all three. I mean, I wrote it. Like, I think it's all three. It's like everything happening at the same time, like Ashley Norton's video. It was the perfect formula for them to capitalize on these stars, make the parents invested, control them. It was all of it. It was just a big present for them.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's definitely all three. I feel like I think I put the marketable one because obviously they want to make as much fucking money as possible.
I think I did too. Right.
You know,
at the end
and
of
that's
the day,
how they do it.
Money.
By appealing to American Christian culture and Yeah,
exactly. So this, again, Ashley Norton actually pointed out this article from Jezebel. It's the rise and fall of the pop star purity ring. It was like a fantastic article, like really speaks to like what we're trying to say, which like I feel like the more we provide nuanced perspectives, the harder it is to like find articles that like back up these ideas kind of. Like, it does more so come from TikTok and YouTube, but this article was really good.
Article says, it made sense then that Disney's first experimentations with the teen pop formula would be with stars who were vocally chaste. By entering the typically lascivious world of teen pop music via innocent white teenagers parents could get behind, Disney had its cake and ate it too. For a record label that was beginning to define itself, cultivating a roster that shared this common identity was simply a great marketing move. Despite its conservatism, Disney wasn't exactly pushing heavily religious themes in the music or on television shows that accompanied their stars. Don't forget that Selena Gomez played a witch. And even if someone found the purity ring thing shocking, the controversy itself was great publicity too.
To hear those individual stars talk about it, like the Jonas Brothers will talk about their religious upbringing, their parents suggesting or asking them if they want to adopt this pledge and wear purity rings, it's easy to see a similar thing would happen for Miley Cyrus, says Morgan Genevieve Blue, who's a scholar and author of Girlhood on Disney Channel, Branding, Celebrity, and Femininity. I want to read that shit.
Yeah, that sounds good.
That sounds good. I should have read like that. Okay.
Yeah.
Though not every Disney star at the time was making public declarations of purity, like Shia LaBeouf, Raven-Symoné, Raviv Ullman, for example, did not. Neither did the Sprouse brothers. Most who had music careers with Disney were, in fact, wearing the rings. It's also interesting to think about what happens when one Disney star in the cohort wears a purity ring and talks about it publicly, and the others rising to fame around her or him don't, because it creates such a stark contrast. And that's a lot of the things of what they talked about, even in that new documentary that came out about Nickelodeon, Quiet on Set, The Dark Side of Kids TV. It's like, there was a pressure among peers to like be better. Like you were in competition with one another at the end of the day. It's like, I would describe the whole Miley, Demi, Selena. It's like they were frenemies. Like they, you know, there were, I would assume, very few like innocent relationships born within that competitive environment. And if you relate it to people going to pledges at True Love Waits, it's like they're feeling that quote unquote positive peer pressure for them, their community. Yeah, but positive. For these actors, it's like that's people signing your checks. Like the pressure is even times 10 more. So it's intense. The article says there's a real fear of female sexuality, female desire, and I think it makes perfect sense for Disney to want to encourage stars to talk about things that happen to also intersect with tenets of popular Christianity, Blue says. Family values, Christian morality, it's especially useful for parents who are attempting to control what their children consume. There was also a growing awareness of the fact that while their virginities may have been a central marketing point for these young stars, it also ended up sexualizing them further, and Disney was essentially using that to make a profit. Whenever a star did do something relatively normal for a teenager, like take sexy photos, they were more intensely scrutinized because they had that expectation. You're a Disney kid, and then boom, like that doesn't exist. The stars sort of had that Disney innocence to fall back on, and they weren't just thrust into mainstream pop stardom, Blue says. On the other hand, then that creates this other discourse where they're constantly being compared to their so-called Disney innocent girlhood, which isn't actually real. It's all just created and made up. So I don't know, like it definitely like ruins my childhood for sure, but it's like this is definitely like a huge dark side of like the overall Disney Channel machine, and like all those videos on YouTube about that. It's like they didn't care that it was going to hurt their stars. Like they didn't care. There's no caring about people in the film and TV industry. Like it's just crazy, and it affects us growing up too, and like watching that and seeing that type of role model that we can never be because it doesn't really exist. And it's like all the things that Miley did, like her Can't Be Tamed when she came out with that song, when she like had a pole on stage. It's like those are all normal teenage things. And it's like not only because she was a star, but she was a Disney star, which made people just fucking get their panties in a twist. Like, how could that happen? How could that not happen? Like, how could that not happen?
And it was happening too, because I remember like Ashley Tisdale had some like super sexualized song, and so did Vanessa Hudgens. Like, remember?
Wait, the Ashley Tisdale one fucking ate. It was like, it was like that he said, she said, something. There was multiple like really.
There was like, but that's what I'm saying. Like they had the commercial breaks with the like songs, and some of them were like sexual innuendos, like kind of sexy dancing in the rain or some shit. And there was always like romance between High School Musical and then like the kiss. Like there was shit. So it was like this backwards, like you can but you can't, like
And when you saw like Ashley Tisdale and like that, like I remember specifically, like I would listen to that today, like on the bus, like, and it's like that's not Sharpay Evans, like they're showing the contrast between,
or Maddie from Sweet Life,
that's not Maddie from Sweet Life, and like she looks like a full grown adult in those music videos, whereas like they try to keep Maddie from Sweet Life looking like pre-pubescent. Like what are you guys doing? Like, they're trying to capitalize off, like, the sex sells in the music industry, but at the same time, like, it's just a lot. So this other article, this last little bit says, with this horde of teen idols proudly proclaiming their chastity, Disney and the broader pop culture lexicon had managed to capitalize on the old message of sex sells, but with a new parent-approved twist, quite literally commodifying virginity. Disney was identifying this important demographic, developing a music format that really worked for them, and then making that so big it was unavoidable for the rest of the music industry. But then if you're going to have Radio Disney be the basis of what you're producing, then you have to really double down on things like sexual immaturity, right? And you do that with these explicit markers like purity rings and professions of chastity. So just further proving the point. It's all insane, but it's all like this. None of this was an accident. They knew exactly what they were doing. It was not just one person. It's like hundreds of people on teams at Disney, like doing this and like approving it.
Yeah. So, clocking it. Yep.
Yeah. So next, I just want to like think about like, you know, should these stars have been just performers? Should they be role models? There's no research in this section. I genuinely am just like, I don't really think they should be role models.
Yeah, same.
But that didn't really align with the polls so much. We asked you guys, do you think Disney stars should have been role models or just performers? And 45% did say performers, but 36% said they should have been both, and 19% said yes, they should have been role models. What do you think?
Yeah, I feel like this goes into the whole thing too, even like lately how there's been a lot of conversations about celebrities and looking to them for like politics and like advocacy and stuff like that. Like all the like pressure. And I think it's like the influencer era, like also on social media, how things get picked apart more. And the tabloids and all of that stuff. And it's just like, I feel like in a perfect world, they would just be performers. And if they reach a certain class of like wealth, then they don't need to like market their personal lives as much. But unfortunately, if you are going to be like on a kid's show and like be a kid star, like I feel like whether you're marketed that way and hopefully ideally your company and your management doesn't, kids will look at you as a role model. But I think that that's like wrong. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like putting stars as gods, putting them as idols, putting them as people who can do nothing wrong.
Right.
Like it sets it up for failure.
You're right, because like it is bound to happen. It's like they watch these shows, they love them in the show, they love how they sing, they want to be like them. Like that's what being stars are, and like you can't get away from that. And it's like maybe we just need parents to be more so like telling their kids like don't look to Miley Cyrus for like your everything, you know?
Right.
Like, maybe they do and kids don't listen, which is also
and even then it's only the super fans though, because I feel like there's a bunch of like music artists, stars, actors that I love for what they do, and I don't spend the time to ever look into their personal life unless something is like sensationalized in the media. You know, and like people, I mean, I know a lot of stars will use that as publicity and stuff as well. And so it's almost like that's what like Disney was trying to do, like trying to put them as role models, but then it also gets them good publicity when they do fuck up. And then, you know,
so it's like they care about the parent angle, but they care about the money more, because even the bad publicity that the parents won't like, they're like, well, whatever, we still want it to sell. Yeah, I feel like just like in this era now in 2024 where like a lot of child stars are coming forward of like horrible treatment, I'm just like, damn, like it's so much pressure for them, and it's like everyone's looking at them like a role model when they just had a dream of like singing or acting. It's like maybe they didn't know they were signing up for all of that too.
Well, even like JoJo Siwa, like she was like fucking mistreated on Dance Moms, like literally I would say like abused on camera. Like she was always being yelled at.
Babe. Every single one of them.
They all were, but I watched some like video essays about it and like just clips because I didn't really watch that show.
I did.
Like, yeah, the clips,
and it was bad.
Like bad. And then you have like, she had her YouTube channel and she has all these fans, and then like her being gay now. And she said she always wanted to have a Miley Cyrus moment, because why wouldn't she? Like, you know, she's put in this little like bow box, and maybe she likes the bows and the colors. Like some of it I think is her, but it's also like you have to break out of like so many other people's expectations of you.
Right. And maybe it was her for a season, not for eternity. Like then that becomes your whole brand. It's like, even if she's like, I don't want to wear the bow today, too bad. Like, you know what I mean? And I'm sure she loved it, like whatever. But it is like, she did want to have her Miley Cyrus moment. Like, we all feel like we want to have a Miley Cyrus moment sometimes.
Yes.
Like, that is really, like, what growing up, like, is.
Yes.
But it's, like, no parent wants to, like, tell you that.
They don't want to deal
like,
with that.
Whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's, like, that really represents it. And I think so many people relate to Miley Cyrus and her, like, stripping away Hannah Montana. Like, I really do think she, like, she
was like, that bitch is dead. This is me
and
naked on a record
really
doll.
related
like,
to that way more than like the purity ring, like sweet little Nashville Miley Stewart, Hannah Montana girl. So yeah, okay. I was just curious. Like, I just feel like they shouldn't be role models, but like I get it that they're ultimately going to be like whatever.
Unfortunately, yeah.
So back to Cheyenne Lynn's video, I particularly loved when she talked about the objectification of puberty in the media, not just about Disney stars necessarily. She talked about a lot of different things, but I'm just going to summarize for the class. So basically, so there's this new trend in Hollywood, right? Child stars, they want their child stars to then become teen icons and essentially grow up with their audience on screen, like Hilary Duff and Miley Cyrus and all these people we're talking about. If you can, she says, like, if you can hook an audience with a young star, like a child star, you have them for life. If they just keep working through adulthood, you're always going to have fans. Like, you hooked them young.
Yeah.
And just because, you know, Disney and these other media companies wanted these teens to grow up as stars does not mean they were accepting of their changing and growing bodies.
Right.
And people were horrible to the teens in the spotlight. And the industry tried to delay their stars going through puberty and suppress their changing bodies on screen. And they did this through, like, body shaming, starting them on plastic surgery really early, and making sure their image stays squeaky clean, like with the purity rings and not having these scandals. And this is both a problem for the actors and the viewers seeing this. And I do remember this episode of Lizzie McGuire where she wanted like a bra, and it was like a whole episode about like her getting a bra. And like, I'm not so mad about this because, like, yes, there is a time where it's like you not only want a bra, but like need a bra. If, like, your tits are fucking growing. But the way that they did it was just like, it wasn't, I don't think it was. It was like back in like those times where like TV shows were weird, the editing was weird, but she would be like, I want a bra. And it would be like that. Like, it was weird, bro. So like, I guess they like tried to do it there, but she started gaining weight when she was 14 years old, because you gain weight when you go through puberty. And she developed an eating disorder with how horrible she was treated. She said, I did get skinny. I felt that pressure like everyone else in my position. When a newspaper comes out that says Duff Puff, she must have gained 15 pounds or something like that. How would any normal person react? And both Raven-Symoné and Demi Lovato, which we've seen, have talked about this, like disordered eating at the cause of like body shaming when you're a teen on screen.
And I also just want to say, I don't want to objectify Hilary Duff, but she's thick and her ass is fat. Like, she looks good as fuck. Like, bro, have you seen Hilary Duff's ass?
No, yeah, she's
like, she has a nice body, but she's like thicker. Like, she's not like skinny bones. Like, she's got bigger bones, but she has a fucking nice body. So, like, yeah, she was hitting puberty and developing into the body that she fucking has, which is beautiful. Thank you.
Extremely beautiful. Thank you. Like, literally. But also, so, like, she talked about, like, how teen stars and also teens in general, like, face that issue where it's, like, adults expect you to, like, be adults when they feel like it's convenient for you to be an adult. And then they expect you to be a kid when they feel like it's convenient for them as well, which is, like, so fucking true. And it's like they don't want their teen actors to grow up too fast, but when it's time, they want them to skip puberty altogether and like completely eliminate that. And they do this by restricting their diet, again, changing their face and restricting their bodily autonomy. Like, you're not going to have sex, and like completely eliminate that awkward stage. And even if you think back to some of these shows, like the characters that were always made fun of, like had braces, which is like something a lot of people did during that time. Like, normal shit.
Normal kids
and meanwhile, like, and you can't, like, I definitely knew watching these shows, like, these girls are way too, like, perfect, pretty, like, how do they always look like that? Like, you kind of knew, but you still pick up on those subliminal messages, like, this is what I should be looking like, and I really wanted to
their
be
hair,
these bitches.
I mean, I realize now they had extensions.
I didn't know
stuff,
back then.
But I didn't know back then. I was just like, how is it so voluptuous? And like, exactly, because it's like they want them to be chaste, pure, blah, blah, blah. But then think about all the Disney shows where it was like a younger girl and a fucking 25-year-old guy. What, like, Hilary Duff was definitely in some of those situations with, like, the movies with
in
the
A
prince
Cinderella
or, like,
Story, when she kissed Chad Michael Murray.
Yeah.
She was 15 and he was like, I don't want to butcher it, but like he was like at least 20.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like, it doesn't make any sense because they're like, no, stay pure. But we're going to like low-key put you in this like illegal
when
situation.
When it's convenient for them.
For
Not
our
right
marketing.
now, though.
Yeah.
And like, it's very like
I don't
raunchy.
know what the ratings are. Yeah.
Yeah, like,
I mean,
you know what I mean? Like,
I feel you though. Is it more of an adult
like, what
show?
are
I don't
11-year-olds
know.
supposed to be watching? It's like they're literally watching like Gossip Girl.
Well, yeah,
because
they're on Netflix where everything is like there's all the, unless their parents put locks on it and stuff, and like same with like TikTok and stuff. Yeah, it's way different.
But it's either like prepubescent girls, like super young, or it's like you jump to Pretty Little Liars. They're in junior high, they're freshmen in high school, but they look like they're like 30 years old with like plastic surgery. Not 30, I'm sorry, but you know what I mean. Like,
but like
30's not an insult. I was just saying like they look so
compared
much
to what you look like when you're 16.
Bro,
Yeah,
I looked like a shrimp. Like I was literally like so. Yeah. So, this last article I want to mention. It just says studies show that kids who sign virginity pledges are just as likely as their non-pledging peers to have sex before marriage. But because their parents and pastors accessorize them with religious-based sex shaming as opposed to comprehensive sex ed, they tend to be more likely to have unsafe sex due to ignorance, leading to higher rates of sexually transmitted diseases and unplanned pregnancies. So, yeah,
counter
bitch, like,
effects.
Y'all are trying to like get rid of pregnancies and you're actually fucking it up.
But then that just like doubles down on their point because when that stuff happens, they can just be like, oh, we need more abstinent education because look how bad things are.
I know. Like, when they don't realize like that's one of the biggest problems. Like
the teen pregnancy epidemic in the 2000s was probably because a lot of the shit in the 90s.
I know. Exactly. And we asked you guys this exact question. Like, if kids were taught safe sex, comprehensive sex ed instead of abstinence, like, would bad things happen? Like, all of these people seem to believe. And 90% said no, bad things would not happen. And only 10% said yes, there would be more pregnancies and STIs. So,
yeah.
Okay.
We can all agree on that.
And then a listener said, a lot of people made us think sex is bad and scary and not something natural that can feel good. And this reminded me of the TikTok too. It's like with that guy that was a pastor talking about it. It's like teenagers really are like the horniest. Like, unless you're like ovulating, like go watch that episode. But like teenagers are the horniest. Like they are the ones that are like so down more than others.
It's a whole new world. They just want to.
And it's just like this listener said, it's something fucking natural that can actually feel really good if you do it in a safe way by yourself or with a partner.
And if they're taught like right about it, because they're gonna do it. Like they have urges. They're gonna be around other kids. They watch more adult stuff, even though if they're only supposed to watch Disney Channel, like they're listening to other music. Like it's happening. So it's like we might as well just be real about it and have healthy conversations about consent, protection, STD, like all the stuff.
Right.
All right, guys, so we made it to the end of the episode, and we're going to wrap it up, as we always do, talking about what we're wet, dry, and still a little bit confused about the topic, because it's okay to still be confused. For wet, I'm like, there's not that fucking much to be wet about in this episode. Purity culture is a big ick. The Disney stuff is really sad. I don't know. I feel like I'm wet about like Miley Cyrus and like Vanessa Hudgens, like as Jonas, but like I love them and like shout out to them for like surviving this shit because like and speaking about it like after.
Right.
I'm glad they're able to do that in the documentaries that were made and stuff like that. Other than that, I guess I'm wet that Disney isn't really taking this direction as much now. But other than that, I'm pretty fucking dry. I don't have much to say.
I guess I'll add to that. Like, I'm pretty fucking dry too. And I'll just say, like, wet for, like, the people on TikTok who are, like, sharing their stories, like, in hopes to, like, connect with people, like, make someone else feel better, like, make it more normalized. Like, you're not alone. Like, you weren't the only one that went through this and things like that. Like, the Reddit community. But yeah, just like the Miley Cyrus moment with the comeback, like that will forever be a moment in culture. Iconic. And like, I never once looked at her sideways. Like, I really was like here for the whole thing. And like, yeah, like we're sex positive feminists. Of course we were.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess we'll just go right to dry.
It just shows you how like being real like gets you more fans, you know?
That's what I'm saying. Like I feel like she was so elevated after that because like people related to something way fucking deeper within her.
She was real as fuck. She wasn't faking it. Yeah.
Like she was everything. And like, yeah.
I love Miley. Definitely dry as fuck about most shit in this episode. The daddy-daughter shit is creepy as fuck. Purity rings are creepy. Dry about how my own religious upbringing like fucked up my life for a good period of time and how I still have to constantly unlearn that. I think that's dry as fuck because I didn't sign up for this shit. It was just fucking given to me. Dry about how Disney treated its stars.
Maybe you could talk to your brother about it. Like he went to the same schools or no?
He was 2 years younger than me, so like I feel like it wasn't as intense.
Right.
But he definitely probably experienced some shit too. I mean,
but it was like way lower on the scale.
Yeah, everyone I went to Catholic school with is like gay now and like fuck that. Like literally everyone.
Bitch.
Like everyone is like fuck that. But yeah, I feel like dry about all of it. I mean, the digital violence stuff too, like the like leaking of the nudes and everything, like so just fucked up. The shame put on women, the virginity lock situation.
Dude, I might be wrong, but I really think that like the digital violence law, if there is one, like was like somewhat of a recent thing.
Yeah.
That like revenge porn like became like criminalized.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking, like, it's just like they didn't have that.
They didn't have anything. Yeah, because phones were still like newish and like all of that type
like
of stuff.
Like hacking MySpace, bitch, what?
Yeah, like, like your AIM account and shit like that. Yeah. Yeah, but I don't know. There's a lot of fucking just dry shit in this episode. I feel bad for Disney. Feel bad for everyone that was ever involved in purity culture as a whole.
Yeah, same.
I don't know. Yeah.
I mean, I learned a lot. Like I said, I don't have any religious upbringing. So like, as far as like the in-depth, like purity movements, like as much as I know is like seeing like a cult, like religious documentary, like I literally don't know anything. And I'm just like, wow. Like, yeah, especially the daddy-daughter photos and like the purity balls, like all of that. And like young girls, like, you know, love their dads if it's a healthy situation or something. It's like, of course they would want to go to that. And then like looking back on those pictures in their adult life, like obviously not everyone's the same, but I just think it's so traumatizing.
Yeah.
But like, and this is something we forgot to mention, but like thinking about all of this in terms of like the purity movements today with like Boy Sober and just like more people wanting to be celibate. Like it is really interesting. Like if this is like the history that like purity rings and like purity culture have in general, like I personally don't want to be any part of that. And I'm not shaming anyone that like wants a purity ring or has one. Like we watch those TikToks of people that like have one today and like it's religious and that's great. But it's like, I don't know, like the history of all of this, like is a little bit scary. And like, granted, like white people's history is scary. Like you can't always get away from it. Like I understand that. Not scary, but like horrible.
Yeah.
So, okay. Now I'm dying into the Matrix right now, you guys. But it's a lot of dry. But I do think it was like good to unpack it, especially like what it felt like for us growing up. Like puberty is so hard as it is, and like a lot of us look to these Disney stars for like escape, and like We loved them and wanted to be like them. And then just to know that this is what was really going on for them behind the scenes. Like, it is heartbreaking. But like you said, I'm glad that a lot of them have spoke about this and like come forward with things that they've experienced. But yeah, I'm just dry about purity in general, organized religion, all that shit.
Virgins,
I honestly don't
yeah.
ever want to talk about it again. So if you're interested, like, go find another podcast, because like we'll continue to cover like celibacy, because it is crazy. Like, purity is like, it's always, you know, a thing for religious people, but it is like, it trends harder than other times. I'm a little drunk. Like, sometimes it's trending a lot. Like 90s movement, and then it kind of dies down, and then you got 2000. Like,
it comes back.
Yeah, so it's like, now what's going on? Like, it's coming back just in a different way, kind of.
Yeah, and that's
because
what I
boys
think I'm
sober and
confused
purity
about.
are different. Yeah.
No, but they're similar, and I think that's
Right.
what I'm confused about a little bit, because it's like, okay, we're going into a Trump era, and how we talked about all this stuff online that is giving like vibes of Christian culture, like purity culture, conservative culture.
Yeah.
And it's just looking at it, it's like, okay, is it making a comeback, you know? Because it died away, it's coming back. Because even when we think about sex positive feminism, and we have a whole episode about that, like we talked about, a lot of that was in rebellion of all of the conservative, abstinent, blah, blah, blah stuff, the sex shamey, no consent stuff that was going on, and then we rebelled, and now we're kind of in this post sex positive era where we're like going abstinent and going celibate and like all of that. And like, I also think it's influenced by the conservative Christian movement that Trump is happening, and like the manosphere right-wing shit. So even though things got better for a little while, it is kind of interesting to think about where we're going from here, because I want to think it's better, but I'm also skeptical. I
Like,
feel
we're
like
just going to keep going in like waves and shit. Like, I don't know. It's like 2 steps forward and like 17,000 steps back. Like, honestly, is what it's always been giving. I'm like, I honestly don't have that much to say. Like, I echo everything that you said. I do feel like, where were the mothers, like, when all this like purity ball, like daddy daughter photo, like it's
no
giving
rights.
marriage,
They're
like
silenced.
pregnancy photo, like what was going on with that? And like, are they also just like victims of this like Christianity madness as well?
Yeah.
Probably. But yeah, I mean, it is confusing thinking about the state of the world now. Like, it really is. Like, the word purity, like, honestly, I hate it. Like, I never want to look at it again. It's like, it's so harmful. And so then it's like, you think about celibacy, like, that's fine. Like, that word's fine with me. It's like, you have autonomy. Like, I can choose to be celibate or not. But purity, it's like, you can't really choose, like, no matter what. Like, if you're assaulted, like, if you make a guy, like, have a boner, like, you're not pure, you're doing unpure things. It's like, you have no control over that. So I hate that word, and, like, I don't get that word, and I don't get why people like really still want to have purity rings. Like, I really don't, but I'm just ignorant to religion. I get it. It's like, you're saving it for Jesus and God.
It's all because fucking Mary is a virgin and birthed Jesus. Like,
right. And that just like holds so deep. It's like Christianity does. It runs so deep within our fucking culture, whether you are or not. So it's like, it's just like, I don't know. Because I do feel like the boy sober and the 4B, it more has to do with gender and like people thinking like men are trash and not as much like wanting to be pure. But like, if celibacy like is the aftermath of doing that. And
well,
like,
yeah, because I was even thinking that with like, it's not giving like the other side completely what they want, because we're also not dating men and marrying them and like having babies or whatever. But it's also like,
right, like that's what they want our bitch asses to do.
Yeah, exactly. They don't want us to have abortions because like abortions are like the result of like sex and like not like, you know what I'm saying? So it's like we're like, we think we're, I don't know. It's such a fucking paradox at
And
this
mind
point.
fuck, it's like how the world just like was in 2008 compared to now. And like,
Yeah.
but we were growing up. Like we were here. It wasn't that fucking long ago. Like it really
2008,
wasn't.
When you say 2008 next to 2024, that makes me feel like
I literally thought by 2024 we'd be like living on robots and clouds.
Yeah,
Like this
I mean,
seems,
we have robots now.
we
Elon
do.
Musk made robots.
I know.
yeah.
That's really true. But yeah. I guess that about does it for this episode, guys. Let us know what you thought, if anything resonated with you, if you have any questions, comments. Let us know if anything resonated with you, or if you just have anything to say, you can comment below, or you can DM us on Instagram. Again, we're at So Wet So Dry. Make sure you follow us so you can see our polls that we put out for every single episode weekly. You could subscribe on YouTube. We really want to hit 1,000 subscribers, just like every other bitch ass on this planet. But like, we really want it. We've been working hard. So we're trying really hard to hit that. If you could help us out by subscribing, it would mean so much to us. Like the video. You can also rate us on other platforms like Apple, Spotify, or Amazon. And just do that, okay?
Yes. We also have listener support. It's 99 cents, $4.99, or $9.99 a month. If you guys listen loyally, you still know we make no money. It's fine. We're going to keep doing it regardless, but it would really, really help our souls going into 2025.
To just get 99 cents for
like
real.
99 cents. Like, bro. Like, come on. But anyway, that about does it for this episode. We love you guys so much, and we will catch you in the next one. Bye!
Bye!
I smell white feminism. I'm gonna be real, guys. I'm one of you. I'm a white bitch as well. I fucking get it. I've been there. I probably did it yesterday. But this whole 4B movement thing is completely missing the mark right now. I did a lot of research on what's actually going on in South Korea, and I think we're a little lost. Second of all, the biggest proponents of this 4B movement in America appear to be cis, heterosexual, white women. And how it started seems to be because men just want situationships and men aren't dating correctly, which entirely misses the whole point. But either way, if post-election, the reason that us collectively as white women want to join the 4B movement is because of men, let me just ask you, what about black men? Or the way we see men is only white, right? Why when we say men, the biggest group of men that's the problem is our demographic, yes, but there's other demographics as well. And I'm not just making this about dating, right? Because this is so white women to just be like, men are the problem. Because yes, we are oppressed by men. I have been oppressed by men. So before you come in here and try to tell me that, oh, I'm a pick-me and I'm a men supporter, no, I'm not. I've been on my journey of healing. Men have hurt me very badly. I don't make excuses for them. But maybe all of this cutting men out isn't really helping. And it's also kind of missing the point of how this is all systemic and isn't only about your interpersonal relationships. Second of all, 53% of white women voted for Trump. Women, us. So I'm just kind of wondering, like, what are we going to do about that? What are we going to do about that? And I don't want anyone to come in here and be like, oh, like I'm against decentering men. No, decenter men. Take a vow of celibacy if you want. Stop dating men if you want. Definitely don't date Trump supporting men. But I think we need to build some bridges in our own white community, having some conversations, even if it's with people you don't necessarily like, because you know us white women, we love to be polite, right? We love to be like, I don't like to talk about politics. Like, no, like I'm just going to be nice. I'm just going to move past it, or I'm just going to block. I'm just going to block. That is very privileged. Our lives are not on the line. Okay, yes, abortion rights, yeah, I get it. But like when it comes to systemic stuff, white women, we are pretty fucking close to white men. We are the closest. And we are also one of the biggest problems in this whole election. But we just keep pointing at white men. Our feminism needs to evolve. It's giving very much white feminism. That's what it is. It's giving very much white feminism. Also, the 4B movement has roots in turf. Okay? All right? So we're being exclusionary. Exclusionary feminism never fucking works. But we did a whole podcast on what liberal white women in America are doing wrong post-election, ourselves included. We're looking in the fucking mirror. We're getting honest. I'm not just pointing at you guys. I'm looking at myself as well. So we have an episode about that. 4B movement, blue bracelet, performative activism, virtue signaling, all of it. Link is in my bio. I love you so much. Let's be better.